What's going on, everyone? We are back, episode 7 of the Sports King.Pod. I hope everyone had a safe and happy Halloween. I know I did. Me and Dan, we were hanging out. I was in a lot of pain sitting around a very cold fire watching the Penn State game. Anthony, what were you up to on Saturday night?
Just hanging with some friends, watching some of the games. I was in pain during the Penn State game. I was in a good mood, but
Yeah,
it was a good Halloween.
if that's just how you're going to be, Anthony, then I'm gonna have to ask you to leave, buddy. But yeah, me and Dan, we had some other friends over. We were having a good time. I know Dan was very cold. He was in shorts and a t-shirt. He was freezing, but to my amusement, at least. So again, we hope you had a great Halloween. There's a lot of sports action over the weekend, and we're gonna start it all off. NFL Week 8, a really fun week. It started on Thursday night. The Panthers, they played the Falcons in a pretty close game. Falcons won the game 25-17. Came down to the wire. Panthers, they had a chance to tie the game, or at least get close to tying the game. They were down by 8, so they would need a 2-point conversion as well. Teddy Bridgewater ends up throwing an interception. He actually got hurt at some point during the game. He took a pretty mean hit. He had to leave the game. Backup came in for a little bit. Falcons, they end up finally holding on to a lead. Matt Ryan, he doesn't throw any touchdowns, but they still end up winning the game. Julio Jones had a very big game, 7 receptions, 137 yards. Any takeaways from the Falcons this game, guys?
I don't know if there's any. I don't think the Falcons showed us perhaps anything else. I mean, Todd Gurley got another touchdown. I think he leads the league in touchdowns or rushing touchdowns. I think he has 8. So that's good for him. But the Falcons defense finally held on to a lead, like you said. So I don't think the Falcons are going to do anything this year. I think it's already kind of too far for them. But a win is a win. So it's good for the Falcons.
Yeah, I agree. What Dan said. A win is a win. The Falcons, they're not a contender anymore. So now it's like this for throughout the rest of the season. This is where you are getting better and looking of what you can do next year and testing those things out now. So you can see like a lot more experiments with like lineups and setups of formations. So, it was a good game, but the Falcons are just too far down now.
Yeah, good points. Anthony, I like your point, especially just start building on what you can do next year. There's not a whole lot of chances for them to make the playoffs, especially how competitive the South has been so far. So don't expect to see them in the playoffs, but yeah, keep building on what you've got. The interim coach is doing good. I think he's making a good case to be the permanent coach next season. And it doesn't look like they'll be trading Julio Jones or Matt Ryan at the trade deadline coming up on Tuesday. So that's a good sign for them. And let's move right into the games that happened on Sunday. We're going to start with the Bills-Patriots. Bills end up winning the game 24-21, a very close game. Cam Newton ends up fumbling on the final drive of the game where they were trying to get into field goal range. He ends up losing the ball. Bills pick it up. Game's over. It was kind of a sloppy game on both ends. Stephon Diggs had a pretty nice game. He had 6 receptions for 92 yards. Damian Harris had a good game running the ball. 16 carries, 102 yards, and a touchdown. This is Cam Newton's, I believe, 3rd straight game without a passing touchdown. So he's still looking to try to bounce back. But what did you guys take away from this game?
The Bills were able to run the ball pretty well. Devin Singletary had a good game, and Zach Moss too. I think he had 2 touchdowns. So it's good in that perspective. But also, Josh Allen didn't have the greatest game. I don't think he threw a touchdown. I think he ran for 1 and had an interception. But it's just their offense has just kind of been stagnating over the past couple of weeks, which is not too good of a sign to see if you're a Bills fan, because you're expecting to compete really well. I mean, a win's a win. I think they're 6-2 now, so it's a very good record. But the Patriots, I mean, they just can't move the ball in the air. It's just nothing. Like you said, Cam Newton, not a passing touchdown in 3 weeks. So I don't know what they can change, if it's a quarterback thing, if it's a receiver thing. But the Patriots, after a promising start, I mean, they could very well maybe sneak into the playoffs, but I doubt it at this point.
Yeah, I think it was just like it was a poor game. Like especially the Bills the past couple weeks, ever since that loss against Kansas City, they don't look the same. They're not as like explosive as they were before. They don't seem like a threat anymore. anyone like the Jets competed with them. The Patriots, who don't have an explosive offense like usual because no Tom Brady, they even competed. And if Cam Newton didn't fumble that, they would have the next play they would probably kicked the field goal because they were around the 20 to like 15-yard line. So just the Bills offense and defense, especially the offense now, don't look the same, and they got to fix that now because you can't go in the playoffs in the AFC and not have an explosive offense.
Yeah, I think makes a good point there about having a good offense or strong offense to pretty much control the game. And I think from this game, I learned more about the Bills than I did learn about the Patriots. And I feel like I'm starting to lose confidence in the Bills. Don't get me wrong, they're a good team, but these last couple of performances that they've had, especially they had a rough outing last week against the Jets, and this wasn't the prettiest of games for them. Dan mentioned they had a very good run game, which is true, they did. But I need to see more out of them, and it's not going to be able to compete with the Chiefs and the Titans and all the other really good teams that are in the AFC, the Ravens, the Steelers. You're just not going to be able to compete with them. And, they put up 18, which were all field goals against the Jets, and now 24 against a Patriots defense that hasn't been, they're not terrible, but they're also not amazing either. So you got to get more production from the offense, like Anthony was saying. They got a good run game, again, as Dan was saying, but Josh Allen's got to be throwing the ball better. He's got a good weapon in Stephon Diggs, who did have a great game today, but getting him involved more is better, and just involving the whole team. I know Cole Beasley had a quiet game today as well. Just getting, like I said, the whole team involved is important for the Bills and improving on the offense, which is very important, as, Anthony said, and as I'm going to say again. In this AFC that's loaded full of offensive teams. All right, so let's bounce into the next game, and this was probably one of, if not the biggest surprise of the weekend. The 5-1 Bengals played the 5-1 Titans, and the Bengals pull out a win, 31-20, in a game that the Bengals, frankly, they dominated in. And I recall in the last podcast, all of us wanted to take the Bengals, but none of us were brave enough to do it. So we all picked the Titans, and the Bengals make us eat our words. Joe Burrow has another really good game, 26-37 for 249 yards and 2 touchdowns. Derrick Henry did have another very good game on the running the ball, 18 carries for 112 yards and a touchdown. And Corey Davis also had a very good game on the receiving end with 8 catches for 128 yards and a touchdown. I know Giovanni Bernard, I believe he had a touchdown or 2. He had a pretty decent game. Tyler Boyd, I believe, caught a touchdown. Yeah, what are you guys' thoughts on this game? Because this was pretty interesting for me, at least.
Just very, very good on the Bengals to get a win against a really good team in the Tennessee Titans. Just everything was kind of clicking for them. Even Samaje Perine got a touchdown too. So Joe Burrow played well, didn't turn the ball over. And then the Titans, I mean, like you said, Derrick Henry had a pretty good game, Corey Davis, but just 20 points isn't enough to win. Ryan Tannehill did throw an interception, so that not very good, but very good from the Bengals. I mean, in the division they're in and their current record, which probably shouldn't, it doesn't really reflect how well they played this season. It's just good signs for next year because that's what it's all about. With this team, Joe Burrow is your franchise now. You have to look towards the future, so it's very, very good sign for them.
Yeah, I was so happy when I saw the Bengals won. Just Joe Burrow, he's just if you just see him play, he's more confident each week. He's starting to throw the ball further down the field with confidence and like harder, like power behind his throws, and then running out in and out of the pocket. His touchdown to Tyler Boyd, he ran to the right and threw it off his right leg, and he's just looking so much more confident. And just the Bengals, I picked them as my performer of the week, like we do each week. The reason why I picked them is I know they're 2-5-1 right now, but in besides the Ravens game, every other game that they lost, they were winning in the fourth quarter, and the defense didn't back Joe Burrow up in the fourth quarter for those games. But today, the defense did very good. Bates had an interception in the end zone that was from Tannehill trying to hit AJ Brown, and Derrick Henry. He did have a good game, but from what we expected against the Bengals' bad defense, he didn't do like exceptionally good. He just had one touchdown, like 110 yards, something like that. But I'm very happy to see this from the Bengals. They're building, they are having fun, and Joe Burrow just is looking better and more confident each week, and that's something to be like scared about when you have to face them.
Yeah, and Anthony's cry for help on a past podcast to get Joe Burrow some help on the defensive end. It came true today. The defense did play exceptionally well against a good Tennessee offense. So it was good to see that. And just a good win for the Bengals, honestly. Dan said their record doesn't really reflect their performance on the season so far. And that's a very true statement, I would say. 2-5-1 doesn't really show how they've been playing. They had a very bad game against the Ravens and maybe another bad game along the way. But most of the games they've played have been close, somewhat competitive, and they've always had a say in those games. Besides that Ravens game, they kind of just got blown out of the water in that game. But that's a different story. But yeah, this is a very impressive win for the Bengals. A young team in the Bengals has built a lot of confidence for them going along the rest of the way in the season, especially because Dan said it. The North is very competitive. We probably won't be seeing them in the playoffs, so it's a good win for them to have now, and it's a good win similar to the Falcons. It's a good thing to build on for next season and future seasons. And this team is only going to get better, which makes it, just scarier. Another game, low-scoring game in some nasty weather in Cleveland. The Raiders beat the Browns 16-6. The leading passer for this game was Baker Mayfield, who only had 122 yards. Josh Jacobs had a very good game on the ground. Granted, he did carry the ball 31 times, 128 yards. He didn't have a touchdown, though. Jarvis Landry had 52 yards on 4 catches. It was a nasty game. Winds were blowing crazy. I believe at some point in the second or third quarter, it started just absolutely downpouring. There was, a combination of rain, snow, sleet, and hail all just coming down from the skies. So it was really nasty conditions to be playing in, and just a sloppy game. The Browns only ended up getting 2 field goals to get their 6 points. And the Raiders did what they did, just got enough to get out of there with a win. That's what Gruden always does. What do you guys got on this game?
Yeah, I don't think there's too much to take away from it. Like you said, the weather really hindered any good offensive showings. But the Raiders, like you said, just did enough. Cleveland couldn't really move. Neither could the Raiders really. But 31 carries from Josh Jacobs, that's a lot of carries, but he was able to just keep the possession in favor of Oakland Las Vegas. And they did enough to get the victory.
Yeah, just like an ugly game, and the weather conditions with the hail and rain all the time didn't help at all. And Jarvis Landry, Baker did throw a touchdown, but it got called back, which was a good call by the refs. Landry didn't have full possession. You see it when he hits the ground, it's still out and not possessed fully. So it was a good call. It was just ugly game, not an offensive game, and just even if with better weather, I think it would be the same thing. You just players weren't like having sharp routes and getting open. It was just not a nice football game to watch.
Yeah, Anthony said it perfect. Long Dan there. Nasty weather didn't call for a good game, but even with good weather, I think the result would have remained the same. I think me and Anthony both picked the Raiders to win this game, if I recall, and Dan had the Browns. The Browns, they moved to 5-3, so they're still in the mix for a wild card spot potentially. The Raiders go to 4-3, so they could also still be in the mix for a wild card spot. And I mean, that's all we really got to say on this game. Dan said it. Josh Jacobs, 31 carries is a high workload, but I mean, if I were the Raiders, I'd keep feeding him. I know he did get stuffed a couple times on the goal line this game, but keep feeding him the rock. He's a good running back. He's going to get those touchdowns and get those hard-earned yards. That's what Josh Jacobs does. Let's move on. We got another kind of low-profile game, I would say, going into this week. The Colts, they beat the Lions 41-21. Matthew Stafford, he had over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Jordan Wilkins on the ground had 89 yards and a touchdown for the Colts on 20 carries. And Marvin Hall for Detroit had 4 catches and 113 yards. I believe Nyheim Hines, he also had 2 receiving touchdowns as well. So he had a good game. The Colts defense also had a very good game. They had a few sacks, a fumble recovery, and they also had a pick 6. So that helped out a lot. And what do you guys got on this game?
Yeah, like you said, that the pick 6 from the Colts defense was pretty big. A pick 6 is always big momentum shift regardless of what team it comes from. But the Lions just weren't able to run the ball at all. I think their best rush was one rush for 11 yards by Agnew, the wide receiver. So they just couldn't. Adrian Peterson could do it. I mean, they were down, so granted they had to throw the ball a lot, but you need a good combination of both, which is what the Colts had in this game, and saw them score 41 points.
Yeah, just how Dan said, you need a even balance of running and passing to keep the defense on their toes and not just we got to pass play every time coming. The defense for the Lions, they have to just be better. Like 3 touchdowns is a lot, and Stafford played really good, but the defense needs to help them out a little. And I think they have a couple more years to where they'll be a good team. They just need to work in free agency and the draft to add to that defense. They got the weapons on the offensive side, so I think they'll be fine. But just the defense needs to play better and support the offense.
Yeah, I really like this performance from the Colts. Their defense really shined again. They've been doing that for majority of the season so far. And Phillip Rivers, he had a pretty decent game as well. He got a lot of help, as I said. Wilkins had a big game on the ground, and Nyheim Hines both had a very good game receiving the ball out of the backfield. And when you got a good combination like that, when your offense is clicking and your defense is also clicking, it's a good recipe for potential playoff run. And that's where the Colts are right now. I believe they are in first place in the AFC South after the Tennessee loss. So maybe they're tied for first. I'm not sure what the tiebreaker is yet, but I could see the Colts being a dark horse in the potential AFC playoff run. They could win the division. If not, they'll probably get a wild card spot. And the playoffs are you're in. Anything can happen at that point. So I would look for the Colts to make maybe not a Super Bowl run, not this year, but a decent playoff run, I would say. Next game, another big surprise this weekend. The 1-5 Vikings played the 5-1 Packers, and they end up winning that game 28-22. Dalvin Cook has the absolute game of his life, puts up 3 touchdowns running the ball, and also puts up a touchdown receiving the ball. Aaron Rodgers had a pretty decent game, 27-41 for 291 and 3 touchdowns. And the leading receiver was Robert Tonyan, with 5 catches, 79 yards. I believe Devontae Adams also had a touchdown catch.
Yeah, 3 touchdowns.
He had 3 touchdowns. There you go. So that's all the scores that the Packers got. Dan, I imagine you have to say a lot about this.
Yeah, it just, I mean, I guess I should preface it by saying that my performer of the weekend has to be Dalvin Cook. 4 touchdowns. He just played absolutely insane. I played against him in fantasy, which I wasn't too happy about. I think he got 50 points, but he made the Packers defense look like a high school team. Like literally, they just could not tackle him at all. Kirk Cousins didn't have to do much at all. The passing game wasn't really clicking, but Dalvin Cook single-handedly won them the game. The Packers, I mean, without Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams is doing okay, but that you can definitely tell that they're missing him a bit. And when they were performing well on offense, it was all going through Devontae Adams, and you can't have that to be successful. So I think they do have Allen Lazard coming back. I don't know if it's like this week or the week after, but if I were the Packers before the trade deadline, I would try to get a wide receiver, maybe Will Fuller for like a 3rd or 4th round pick, just to get another guy in there, so all the attention isn't on Adams. But a very good win by the Vikings. 2-5. Now I don't know what this means for them, but it'll definitely be interesting to watch them with Cook back, who's their main offensive threat for the rest of the season.
Yes, very, very, very good game by Cook. 4 touchdowns. You don't see that every weekend. Adams had another great week also, 3 touchdowns. I have him in fantasy. I beat the undefeated person in our league this week, so I was pretty happy about that. Just the Packers do need that that extra receiver. Will Fuller is a great example of someone they could get from Houston. Aaron Rodgers needs help. He can't have everything go to Adams because Jones is always in or he's always out. He's not going to play a full season because of health injury, so he needs to have that number two to help him out. And then the defense for the Packers just have to do better. You know, Cook was unstoppable with it today, and like it's hard to stop someone who's on fire. But the defense needs to do better. They did a good job on passing because Thielen was quiet and there was not a passing game. But then they just got to work up front on their running game.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, you said it all pretty much. Dalvin Cook had a big game. That's to no one's surprise. I think the only thing I have to say about this is it probably throws a wrench in the plans of the Vikings to try and get Trevor Lawrence. Maybe I feel like that might have been an idea they had, moving on from Kirk Cousins and getting Trevor Lawrence. But I mean, it's looking like the Jets are going to get the first pick anyway. But you never know. So I think that's all I have to say on that. Great game by Dalvin Cook, obviously, as we all stated. And I agree with the fact that the Packers should be looking to get a wide receiver by Tuesday's trade deadline, which we'll hop into more in just a bit. But we'll continue with the games, and we'll touch upon this game very briefly because I think we all saw it coming. Chiefs manhandled the Jets 35-9. Patrick Mahomes has an MVP type of game, throwing for 416 yards and 5 touchdowns. Travis Kelce, he got 100 receiving yards. He also had a touchdown. Anything on this game, guys?
There's really nothing to say. It's just one of the best teams in football playing one of the worst teams. We saw Chad Henne come in once again because the Chiefs steamrolled the team. So that's pretty cool, but there's nothing really else to say
They
about
probably could have started Chad Henne and they still would have won the game, in my opinion.
it.
Honestly.
Probably.
You said it. I'm gonna even have to speak for this one.
All right, and let's get into the game Anthony's probably most excited about. The Miami Dolphins, their newest quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa, comes in, starts the game, his first career NFL start, and they defeat the Los Angeles Rams 28-17. And you guys go ahead, and then I'll get into it, what I have to say. Anthony, why don't you go first? You take the honors.
Yeah. Okay, so this was my prediction of the week that the Dolphins would beat the Rams, and happened. I'm happy. I'm 1-1 now on predictions. Just Tua, I know he only had one touchdown and 93 yards, I think it was. He didn't have a spectacular game like Burrow and Herbert have been doing, but the defense for the Dolphins was tremendous, and special teams, a punt return touchdown, a pick six, a fumble return touchdown, and then an interception that the dude got tackled at the 1 yard line, and then the very next play they ran it in for a touchdown. Tua just had a game. He didn't have a great game, but he just did his job. He relied on the defense. He just tried to make plays. It was against a very good defense, and he had 2 fumbles. Aaron Donald did get to him, and just it's a minor game, but Tua's just gonna have to feel more confident, comfortable. He didn't look confident today. After he threw that for his first touchdown, you saw him patting his chest and pointing up, building his confidence up like Burrow and Herbert have been doing. So that's what he needs to do. But it was a very good game, and I was happy the Dolphins won.
Yeah. So like Anthony just said, it really was the defense and special teams that won this game for the Dolphins. Jared Goff really, really struggled, and they weren't able to run like insanely well. But I will say, even though Tua did not perform particularly well, it is good to get out there and win on your first start, and just get used to the NFL tempo, and especially playing against a guy like Aaron Donald, you're not going to experience pressure more from anybody else in the league. So maybe you can look at that as a positive, but a good win for the Dolphins. So, and a good start for Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah, you guys said it well, I would say. Anthony talked about defense and special teams helping out a lot. Pretty much putting a lot of points on the board, almost to the 21, we'll say, because as he mentioned, I believe it was a fumble or interception. Guy got tackled on the 1 yard line. They punched it right in. So, we'll credit the defense for those points. But from the Rams, I would say Jared Goff threw the ball 61 times. That just cannot be happening. I don't care what type of offense you're running. You can't be throwing the ball 61 times and expect to win a game, honestly. You got to have a good mix of being able to run the ball. I know Dan said they weren't able to run the ball, but, you still got to try. One of those are eventually going to, break off. It doesn't have to be a 60-yard touchdown run. Anything between like 5 yards, 10 yards, just to get something going, build some momentum on the ground. That helps. But throwing the ball 61 times isn't really going to help anyone besides maybe fantasy owners for the wide receivers. So for the Rams, I would say look to run the ball more. Don't have, especially not Jared Goff throwing the ball 61 times. And especially in the division you're playing in, every win counts. And it's a big win. And this was a win they probably needed, honestly, on their schedule. So a good game by the Dolphins, an impressive win for them. And the Rams definitely need to bounce back and learn from this game, I would say. Because offense was very sloppy. And their defense didn't play that well either. They did have a few takeaways, but can be better. It should be better, honestly. Let's move on now to probably the game of the week on paper, I would say. The undefeated Steelers, they went to Baltimore to play the Ravens in a very big divisional game. And it was pretty close the entire way through. At halftime, the Ravens were up 17-7. And then the Steelers stormed back. And the game finishes 28-24. Lamar Jackson has a pretty rough game. No quarterbacks didn't particularly play well in this game. Lamar Jackson did have over 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think he did have a couple of picks as well. J.K. Dobbins had a pretty good game running the ball, 113 yards on the ground. Willie Snead had 106 yards on 5 receptions. I believe Chase Claypool also had a touchdown reception. But yeah, I think who else picked the Steelers? I remember I picked the Steelers. Was it you, Anthony?
I did.
Me and Anthony picked the Steelers. Dan picked the Ravens. Steelers, they remain perfect at 7-0. They get themselves a nice, comfortable lead over the Ravens, who fall to 5-2. What do you guys got on this game now?
I really thought, obviously I said I predicted the Ravens, but I thought that they were going to be able to see the game through. I think they were up 17-7 at half. And they were just, during the first half, I would say, they did a really good job of running the ball. Like you said, J.K. Dobbins had a good game. Just getting like Gus Edwards in there and then Lamar running himself. But I think the Steelers kind of switched it up and made, Lamar passing, try to beat them in the second half. And, obviously only one more touchdown in that second half. And the Steelers were able to make some offense of their own. So, it's a tough divisional game. We knew it would be close, but very good on the Steelers. They're the only perfect team left. And the Ravens, I don't know. I'm not like losing complete confidence in the Ravens or anything. They'll still probably make the playoffs, but they're going to be disappointed in themselves losing this one.
Yes, this was a very key game for the Steelers because, as said by both of you, they were down 17-7. And this season, we never seen the Steelers down, especially by that much. So this was a good thing for them, practicing from working down, having to come back, and they did. And the defense is very good. They don't have their main middle linebacker Devin Bush this year, but then Robert Spillane is taking his spot. He had a pick 6 today, the first play of the game after the kickoff. It was a pick 6 by him, and the defense is just getting better, and the offense is using every weapon they have. Big Ben said that it's the funnest year he ever had because he has so many weapons, and you don't know where the ball is going to go because each player is talented. So it was a great game. Very happy for the Steelers, and now, like we talked about this on the last podcast, I could see them going 16-0. Next hard game I think is the Ravens again, but they'll be home. But I really like the Steelers team. There's something special this year.
Yeah, the 7-0 start matches their best start all time in the Steelers franchise. And I agree with Anthony, quite frankly. I feel like this team very well could go 16-0. I don't think they will. I think there's going to be some surprise game along the way that they'll probably drop. We mentioned in the last podcast, we went through their schedule. I could see them potentially dropping the game to the Bengals, maybe. And Anthony said again they'll play the Ravens again, which will make another interesting game. They could lose that game as well. But this is a team with a lot of potential to go 16-0 and a lot of potential to win the Super Bowl, I would say. And to me, right now, they're my favorites to win the Super Bowl. I think I'm not going to count out the Chiefs. I'm not going to count out all the other great teams like the Seahawks. I'm not going to count any of those teams out because it's still very early in the season, honestly. But if I had to put money on a team to win the Super Bowl right now, I think I'd be pretty confident in the Steelers. Their defense played amazing in the second half. There was I think there was some part of the game where TJ Watt was yelling at the defensive coordinator, and there was some big argument going on the sideline between all the defensive guys, and they got their stuff together, and they came out in the second half, and they absolutely balled out, and they pretty much saved the game. And there was, they held on the last drive of the game where Baltimore needed a touchdown to win the game, and they held. And they won the game for the Steelers, I would say. I mean, if that defense is a step up in the second half, the Steelers aren't going to win that game because the way the offense was playing in the first half of the Ravens and the way the offense was playing in the first half of the Steelers, that game, the Steelers offense picked up as well in the second half. I'll give them that. But the way the Ravens offense was going in the first half, they played like that in the second half as well. The game would have been way out of reach for the Steelers, and they wouldn't have won the game. But the defense stepped up, didn't allow the offense to do that. And that's a big part of the Steelers team. Their defense is pretty solid. And they'll need that defense to stop all the other high-powered teams in the AFC. All right, so here was another interesting game in the afternoon window of games, the late afternoon window, I should say. The Broncos, they played the Chargers. The Chargers looked well on the way to win this game. I believe they're up 24-3 at some point. And Drew Lock turns into the greatest quarterback of all time in the second half of this game and absolutely leads a comeback. He throws a game-winning touchdown. I believe there was no time left on the clock to KJ Hamler. In a play that was originally called, they called it incomplete, and after discussions and reviewing, they called it complete. They won the game 31-30. Justin Herbert had another pretty decent game, 278 yards, 3 touchdowns. Justin Jackson did well on the ground with 89 yards. And Mike Williams, he was 1 yard shy of 100. He had a touchdown on 5 catches. Dan, you were talking before the podcast. I think you said Deshaun Hamilton had a very nice catch too. Mm-hmm. I think Phillip Lindsay also had like a 50-yard touchdown run or something like that.
Yep.
So, pretty interesting game. Not a whole lot of defense played, obviously. What do you guys have to say about this game?
Yeah, crazy. I mean, a really good comeback for the Broncos. And these are two teams, I don't think either of them is going to make the playoffs, but they're also two teams that are, more future oriented, like kind of like with the Bengals, like I was saying. But very good on the Broncos come back and see Drew Lock play well. He's had it pretty rough this year with some injuries and then a few games where he just hasn't looked good just in general. But it's very good for the Broncos. Herbert, played well. I think he had an interception or two, which doesn't really help, but very good win in the division for the Broncos.
Yes, this was a great game, and like Dom said, you said Drew Lock looked like the best player in the second half, and to be honest, it was really just the fourth quarter. In the third quarter, they only scored, I think, it was either 3 or 6 points, and then the fourth quarter they scored 21 points. And Drew Lock has great potential. He has great weapons. I know Sutton is hurt, and then he doesn't have his 2 starting tackles on the line. But this Broncos team is going to be a great team. Just once everyone's healthy, they'll have Von Miller, Chubb on the ends. When this team's healthy, they'll be a top contender. I know the Chiefs are usually the head of that division, but the Chiefs can't feel comfortable anymore. The Chargers are a great team also. The defense is really good. It just for today, in the second half, they just disappeared, especially in the fourth quarter when they really needed it. And then the Raiders in the Division 2 are a good team. So it was a very good game by both, and the Chiefs should be worried because it's not going to be as easy as usual.
Maybe I don't think you should get ahead of yourself.
Maybe not for another couple more years. I think
Patrick Mahomes
they've
is
got it.
still
in hand.
If the Chargers, they won by a field goal, the Chiefs, and the Chargers were up that whole game. And if something happened, I forget what it was, but something happened, and that's why the Chiefs won.
Yeah, well, typically division games are close, but when the Chiefs go up against a team like the Ravens or the Bills, they can win. But I don't know if in those non-division games how well, your Chargers, your Broncos, and your Raiders are going to perform. So, and at least for my money, the Chiefs still have the best offensive player in the league, maybe just player in general, even though I'd probably say Aaron Donald. Patrick Mahomes, he's going to come through. I mean, all these guys, Locke and Herbert, they have potential, but Mahomes is, I think we are, he's generational. He's top tier. It's going to be crazy. Like his accolades towards the end of his career. But I would just have to say that before saying the Chiefs have to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, I don't think the Chiefs are gonna have to worry about losing the division for at least another couple of years. I do think the Chargers and the Raiders and even the Broncos in a couple of years they could trend upwards towards
Good
some
wild
of the
card
better
teams.
teams.
Mhm.
I'm not
Yeah.
saying lose the division. I'm just saying that they can't feel like 100% like, oh, anytime we play a division team, we're gonna win. We don't even really have to care about this game
Well,
because
I don't think any
like
team
that.
thinks like that. I don't think any team goes into a game saying like, "Oh,
Not
we're
in the
definitely going to win
division.
this game." Definitely not in the division. But I don't think regardless teams think that way. I think that's a silly way to think. I think if you think
Besides
like
when they
that,
play the Jets
yeah, maybe.
this
All right.
year.
I think everyone thinks when they play the Jets they're going to win. But if you look at games like that, then you're bound to lose those games, honestly. So if you put yourself into that trap thinking, okay, easy win, it just isn't going to work out that way. No matter how good you think your football team is, no matter how bad you think the opposing football team is, you need to focus on the team you're playing that week, and you need to be able to handle them. And if the Chiefs are looking at the Chargers, the Raiders, or the Broncos, saying, we should be able to beat those guys pretty easily, then that's just silly, especially with a coach like Andy Reid. I know Andy Reid, he's not going to tell the guys, guys, don't worry about this. We're playing the Raiders this week. Don't worry about them. We got a bigger game next week. Let's just start preparing for that game. Andy Reid's not that type of coach. So I don't think they're going to be looking down on the other AFC West teams. So I think we'll just leave it at that and, save that conversation for another day. Let's move on. This game was really weird, honestly. Saints Bears. Saints win the game 26-23 in overtime. The offenses kind of sucked, and so did the defenses, really. It was a really weird game. It was kind of like in between. It was like, all right, this is a boring game to watch. But it wasn't at the same time. Drew Brees, he throws for 280 yards and 2 touchdowns. David Montgomery has a big game on the ground, 89 rushing yards. And Alvin Kamara, he looks like a wide receiver nowadays, 9 catches for 96 yards. Yeah, as I said, the Saints won the game in overtime with a field goal. Will Lutz was probably the player of the game for the Saints. He did miss one, but he had a pretty good game. I mean, the Bears didn't play bad either, but you guys tell me what you got on this game.
Yeah, like you said, a little weird. Points of it was like, this is a little boring, but a good win for the Saints against the Bears in a very solid team. I don't care what Anthony says. I still think the Bears are a really good team, but I don't really know what to make of it. Presumably the Saints should get Michael Thomas back next week, if not the week after. So we'll see if their offense can be, the juggernaut that it usually is. I mean, Alvin Kamara can't be getting 9 receptions a game. You know what I mean? Like you need some other help in there. But yeah, it's a good win for the Saints. Bears, tough loss against a solid team. So we'll just have to see what is next with the Bears. Thankfully, if you're a Bears fan, the Packers did lose, so it's not like they kind of got 2 steps ahead in the division. So it's still close to the NFC North. But yeah, weird game.
Weird and boring. The best part of the game is the fight, which I didn't even make sense to me. when players punch people with helmets on, like they do know that it's really easy to break your hand, see how
It was
hard you
it
hit
was
it.
an open palm strike though. The second one was open palm, so it was smarter.
Yeah, it was Mims, right?
It was Wims, Javon
Wims,
Wims.
Wims, Wims. Just you can't be doing that. Like Johnson was looking at the sideline, and yeah, the best part I liked is you legit tapped him on the shoulder, hit him once, and Johnson didn't move at all, and then you went whew, nice and hard. That was, I was watching that. I saw a fight happen. That was exciting. It got me going. It got me in a happy, like a hyper mood. So that was my highlight of the game. But Wims, you just can't be doing that unsportsmanlike. I don't care what beef or problems you two have, but you just got to be better. This is not a fighting league, and violence is supposed to be something for the fans and for you to help your family out. So
Yeah, the most exciting part of this game, and I would say the most exciting part of the Bears season so far, was that fight. I think Dan, me, and Anthony are on the same boat where the Bears probably just aren't that good of a team, in my opinion. I do like their defense, but I don't think the team's 5-3, and they're probably the weirdest 5-3 team of all time. But that was a fun fight to watch. It wasn't much of a fight, but I enjoyed it. As Anthony said, Javon Wims just waddled on over to CJ Gardner-Johnson and said, "What's up, pimp?" and punched him a couple times. I'm not entirely sure why. Some people say it was because last season Gardner-Johnson was making fun of Tariq Cohen and his size.
I do remember that.
They say that's what
Yeah.
Wims was getting at.
He was like,
Yeah, he did this. They making fun of his height. So they say
I vividly remember
they
that.
say that's why Wims did it. I'm not entirely sure. It was just funny though watching it because Joe Buck and Troy Aikman were calling the game, and Troy Aikman's like, "Oh, there's a fight going on over there," and it's just like they showed the replay, and I'm like, "That's not a fight. That's assault." So that was pretty funny. That made the game worth my while. If not, that would have been 3.5 hours of my life I'll never get back. But I enjoyed the fight. It was fun. All right, so let's move on. 49ers Seahawks. Two big things come out of this game. One, DK Metcalf emerges as one of the top receivers in the NFL, I would say. And two, Jimmy Garoppolo and George Kittle both go down for the 49ers, both leave the game with injuries. Garoppolo with an ankle injury. I'm not entirely sure what Kittle's injury was, but they'll play on Thursday night against the Packers, so those two could potentially both miss that game. That could be pretty big, but let's stick to the Seahawks-Niners game real quick. Russell Wilson has another very good game. Over 250 yards, 4 touchdowns. And as I mentioned, DK Metcalf had a tremendous game. 12 catches, 161 yards, 2 touchdowns. DJ Dallas, he was the starting running back with Chris Carson and Carlos Hyde both out. Him and Travis Homer got majority of the ball. He got 18 carries, 41 yards, and a touchdown. He also had a receiving touchdown. Helped me in fantasy. I started him, so that was a good call. Guys, what do you got on this game?
Yeah, I mean, even though Jimmy G went out, I think the offense kind of looked better under Nick Mullins. Nick Mullins, 238, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 18 of 25. So I would say pretty good. And they were able to amount at least a little bit of a comeback. They ended up with 27 points. They did get 2 rushing touchdowns, but they weren't able to run the ball particularly well. Hasty got a majority of the carries. But you never know. Mostert's still out, but they still have McKinnon and Coleman. But you never know with the 49ers and the running backs what they're going to do. And the Seattle offense, 37 points, Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf. And like you said, DJ Dallas did a very good job filling in. So a good win after coming off a loss for the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, I just want to, Dom, I know you just said wasn't sure what Kittle's injury was. It was his ankle, and Kyle Shanahan says that in the initial x-rays, the ankle did not have any revealed fracture. So, that's a good sign. I don't know if that, because it's a short week, because they have to play Thursday. I don't know if Kittle will be 100% for Thursday, but it was the Seahawks. Metcalf is one of the best receivers in the league. No one's built like him. He kind of reminds me of like how like Zion is to basketball, like a freak athlete that just is amazing. The week prior to like the tough loss they had against the Cardinals, he only had 2 receptions. Now they made sure they got the ball back to him, and he made it. He made sure that he made a statement saying, "I need of the ball a lot during this game to win." Russell Wilson looks amazing as always, MVP type year. And then Garoppolo did go down. Mullins, I think the Niners definitely feel a lot of confidence when Mullins is as quarterback. They kind of feel like it kind of looks like how when Wentz would be out and when Foles was on the Eagles, the team loved playing with Foles and they won. They won the Super Bowl. So that's how I see it in my eyes. It's like Wentz is like Garoppolo, Mullins is Foles, and Mullins just will go in and do the simple job. Garoppolo doesn't take those like chances. He's a little hesitant, which I know they're a running offense, but for passing, you got to be confident and not hesitant because when you're hesitant, you're missing your chance of making that big play happen. But it was a good game. They almost made a comeback, but the Seahawks just are making sure that they're not losing no more.
Yeah, the score was a lot closer than the game would say. 37-27. I think the Seahawks were up like 30-7 at some point in the game. So the Niners got, a lot of their points. They got 20 points in the fourth quarter. So that's when the game started to get close. By that point, the Seahawks had pretty much, taken their foot off the gas pedal and slowed down a little bit. They started just chewing clock at that point. But it was a good game from the Seahawks. Good to see them bounce back after a tough loss against the Cardinals. So and again, a very important win in a close division right now that keeps them ahead of the Cardinals, who were on a bye week this week. And Dan said, Mullins had a pretty good game. If need be, he'll probably be the starter against the Packers on Thursday. In a game, we'll talk about on the midweek podcast. But if that's the case, then hopefully he continues his good play against the Packers. Rough defense, a defense that got roughed up today, and when they got roughed up against the Buccaneers a few weeks back. So I'm not saying the sky is falling for the 49ers. It's probably a must-win game on Thursday against the Packers, especially in their tough division and the way the rest of the NFC is going, and they probably won't end up getting a wild card spot. So good win for the Seahawks. Not a terrible loss for the 49ers, but they definitely need to bounce back on Thursday. And, Anthony said DK Metcalf slowly becoming one of the top wide receivers in the NFL, and it's hard to disagree with that. The man is simply built different. So that's all I got on that. Let's move on. Sunday night game. The NFC least teams represented. Eagles played the Cowboys. Ben DiNucci was the starting quarterback for the Cowboys. This was an abysmal game to watch. If you were a fan of either of these teams or just a fan of football in general, I would say. So what do you guys got on this?
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles do enough to win. We expected them to win. They were down at halftime, which of course they were. I mean, just why not? But Dallas could not really move the ball. Ben DiNucci. I mean, I can't I feel like if you're a Dallas fan, you can't just be like mad at Ben DiNucci for their struggles. I mean, third string rookie quarterback who's drafted in like the 6th or 7th, just being thrown in there with, just with the offensive line situation and just the team not playing well in general. So I feel he can't get too mad at him. Zeke couldn't run the ball particularly well. A lot of the yards, I guess, were like on that last drive when I don't know what they were trying to do. I mean, obviously trying to score, but if they were thinking about how to play, they should have gone for a long shot, then onside kick, but I digress. The Eagles, Wentz, 2 interceptions. I really don't know. He's typically, like we've seen before, very efficient quarterback with his turnovers, but this season, just something else. I don't know. Travis Fulgham had another good game. Jalen Rager also caught a touchdown, which is good to see if you're an Eagles fan, him coming back. But like you said, boring game. Eagles do enough to win. Fletcher Cox had a good game. I do want to point that out as well. But Eagles are top of the division, and they have going into the bye next week.
Just nice and easy. No one won this game. It was an ugly game. Like I know the Eagles won, but I'm not happy. I wouldn't be happy that they won because they played terrible, to be honest. They kept trying to pick on Trevon Diggs, the rookie corner. He had the 2 interceptions. Wentz wasn't on point with his throws. It was good to see Dallas Goedert back. So that was a good sign. Just it was an ugly game. No one won this game, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with Anthony. I don't think anyone won this game. I think the Eagles need to seriously look at this game and see it as a loss. Honestly, they should have won this game, 50-9. They should have won this game 60-0. Honestly, they should have picked off Ben DiNucci at least 5 times. There was a lot of tip balls that they should have easily had. A lot of catches that they dropped.
Roddy
The
McLeod
offense
dropped one right to him.
Yeah.
There were 4 of those type of plays when it's right to the player.
Carson Wentz, it was probably one of his worst games of the year, honestly. His first fumble loss, I don't know what the hell he was doing. He was rolling out of the pocket, and I thought he was either going to launch the ball downfield or take off with it or throw it out of bounds. And I tweeted it out. I was like, Carson Wentz just went Stevie Wonder and got hit and lost the ball. I had no clue what he was doing or what he was thinking. So that was really weird. Boston Scott had a pretty good game on the ground. He had 70 rushing yards on 15 carries. Dan said Travis Fulgham had another good game. He did 78 yards and a touchdown. And Dallas continues with their problems. They couldn't get their running game going. Zeke had another terrible game. I think he might have had a one rush for 10 yards, and Tony Pollard had another pretty good run, but that was about it because they couldn't get their run game going. And Dallas going, a different offense this week. They had some wildcat formation plays going. They had some, trickery going around. They were doing some jet sweeps and a lot of motions and a lot of laterals and backwards passing and all that. So interesting to see from Dallas. Obviously, it didn't work out all that well. Only putting up 9 points off field goals. But yeah, the Eagles need to look at this game as a loss, especially going into the bye week. There's a lot they got to fix. And going into the trade deadline too, they're not really sure if they're going to be buyers or sellers yet. So they sit at the top of the division right now, 3-4-1, but that's nothing to be happy over in the NFC East. But yeah, not a pretty game to watch. Not a fun game for Sunday Night Football. I mean, a win's a win for the Eagles, and I'm sure they'll take it. But again, they need to look at the game as a loss, and they need to fix a lot of things. Their next game, they'll come out of the bye week and they'll versus the Giants. So that'll be another game where, they struggled against the Giants on Thursday Night Football last week. So they got to build off that game, build off this game, and fix a lot of things. And maybe try and prove to the rest of the NFL as they continue to get healthy and more people continue to come back. I know Lane Johnson didn't play. He was supposed to play, but, pregame warm-ups and leading up to the game, his ankle started swelling up again, so they didn't let him play. And, hopefully he can continue to get healthy with this bye week coming up. And, just hope for better things from the Eagles because the roster they have, they should be a better team, and they're just not. The defense today didn't play all that well. Defensive line played okay, got a lot of sacks, but that was a banged-up Cowboys O-line. So I wouldn't take away too much from this Eagles fans. Not a pretty game. Nothing to be happy over. Let's just move on from this game. That's all the Sunday games. There's one more game to be played on Monday night. Anthony's census number 1 team in the NFL, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're going to play the New York Giants. Anything, guys?
Bucks win. Not even need to talk a lot about this game. Buccaneers win.
Yeah, there's nothing that really can. The Giants could probably stop their. They're pretty good against the run, so maybe they can slow down Jones and Fournette. But I know Chris Godwin's out, but I still don't. The Tampa Bay will have enough, especially their defense is gonna absolutely crush the Giants' offense.
I agree. Buccaneers should very easily win this game. There's not much to say about it. Okay, so we touched upon it earlier. We've mentioned it a few times. Trade deadline, 4:00 Tuesday, November 3rd. There's a few names floating around. Some bigger names. Some say J.J. Watt could be on the move, but nothing set in stone. there's a few guys on the Texans who could be moved. There's, names going around. Kenny Stills could be traded. Will Fuller could be traded. People are looking at Alshon Jeffrey could potentially be traded. Golden Tate could potentially be traded. We've already seen Yannick Ngakoue we could traded to the Ravens. You guys think there could be any more bigger moves that could happen before the trade deadline on Tuesday?
I did see a few trades involving Stephon Gilmore, which it would be big. It would take a first round pick and then more. But the Patriots, I think Bill Belichick came out and said that their problems have been due to the salary cap situation that they're in. And Stephon Gilmore has a pretty big contract, so getting his contract off the books, getting a first round pick and then more picks probably could bode well for the Patriots if we're being honest. So that could be something we should look out for. But I think that the team that needs to do something is the Packers. They need to buy on a wide receiver. I think Will Fuller is the most talented one on the block, but he would also cost the most, probably a third or fourth. But if you need to give up less for like a Kenny Stills or a Golden Tate or Marvin Jones Jr., but I don't know, trading within division if that would happen. But just the Packers definitely need to go after a wide receiver.
Yes, like I'll touch on both things. On Gilmore, the Patriots, especially Belichick, once their cornerbacks getting old, they'll just ship him out, get picks and players, and just ship him out. They don't want to take his money. And then I said Marvin Jones, he just turned 30 this year, and he's most likely not going to resign after this season. But like it's in division, so it's unlikely to happen. It's a possibility, but the Packers do have to buy a wide receiver. Will Fuller is the most talented, and a third or fourth round pick for Will Fuller, I would say, is a great deal, especially if in their mind they think they can win the Super Bowl this year. So I would do that. There's then two quarterbacks that just want to keep an eye on would be one, Haskins. We all know it's not working, so he might just be traded somewhere as like a backup or to some team that is like experimenting, like the Bears or Broncos or Colts, and then a team or not the Colts, sorry, the Broncos or Bears, and then for the Colts, this other quarterback, Sam Darnold, he would be a big key. I like him a lot on the Colts, especially because Rivers is done after this year with his contract. You don't know if he's going to retire. Darnold has a lot of potential. I still believe he can be very good, especially with a good line and weapons in front of him. The only thing is now with Trevor Lawrence saying it's not 100% anymore that he's going to go into the NFL draft after this college season. So that's kind of like you got to keep that in mind. The Jets might go all in for Lawrence, and then he doesn't go in the draft, and then who's going to be their quarterback? They're going to have to sign like a Geno Smith back or something like that. But Sam Darnold, I would see would be a big key. Or they might trade if they believe in Sam Darnold. They might trade that number one overall pick if they to get like 6 picks or 4 picks and a lot of good players for it.
Yeah, I think what Dan said was pretty accurate. I think the Packers end up trading for probably a big name wide receiver. But you hear these rumors going around that JJ Watt could be traded. Some are saying Michael Thomas could be on the move. I don't think there's going to be any huge moves that happen. I think the biggest move that will happen is the Packers do end up trading for one of those wide receivers on the Texans. It could be Stills or it could be Will Fuller. They could end up trading for Golden Tate, but I think it'd probably be one of the guys on the Texans, honestly. And that's about. I don't expect many big moves to happen. I think there could be a lot of small moves. Not big name guys, not small name guys either, but just like average guys that could be on the move to help out some teams who are in the hunt and to help out some teams who are in prime playoff position for depth, just to help out a little bit. But I don't imagine too many big names will be shipped out of their current homes, especially because I think this year is really different because all the COVID things going on. I think it's going to prevent a lot of trades from happening, honestly.
There's like a
So
5-day waiting period, right? You
yeah,
have
I
to
think that the
do
teams might be a little
some
hesitant on
testing.
that too. So I don't think any big names are going to be moved, but I think there could be a lot of small names. And again, the biggest name that probably will be moved will be either Will Fuller or Kenny Stills, probably going to the Packers realistically. All right, so that's the trade deadline. We've got a few NFL related questions that we received from the Instagram story, which you can always find on Wednesday and Sunday afternoons if you want to ever ask your own questions or leave a comment on this video and just ask away, do whatever you like. First question we'll go into: are there any teams in the NFL that could make a late season push and make it into the playoffs?
It's oh, I have a few of mine. Perhaps the Raiders. They sit at 4-3, right? That they have a win against the Chiefs, who, for my money, are probably the best team or second best team. So they could perhaps squeeze into the playoffs. It's they're in the AFC, so it's not like the NFC where the NFC West is gonna have like 3 teams making it. So they can essentially run it. And I know this one might be a bit more outlandish to think, but with Dalvin Cook back, I know the Vikings are 2-5 right now, but I saw a graphic from earlier today about teams who are 1-5 that made to the playoffs. And if you remember 2 years ago, the Colts were 1-5 and then made to the playoffs 10-6. So I'm not saying this could happen, but they beat the Packers today. They've lost some close games. Their offense with Cook and then with like Thielen and Jefferson, their offense can score points from time to time, and the defense still has some good players. So that one, it's the Raiders. I feel like are definitely a better chance, but you know, if something crazy happens, the Bears fall apart, Packers fall apart, the Vikings very well, maybe just a thought. I want to put that out there. Little bold, a little bit more spicy.
I would have like 3 teams. The Raiders, I agree. I'm pretty sure they're currently 9th in the conference. So
They're
now we
currently
have
eighth,
17,
tied with the
8th.
Dolphins.
All right, yeah, because they won today. So they're now 8th. So especially because now we get 7 teams in the playoffs. I like the Raiders. I think they're a good team. So that'll be one. The Dolphins will be another. I know they had a good game today, and the defense I don't think is going to play like that every game. If they do, they'll be considered one of the best defenses ever. But they're not going to play like that every game. Just the Dolphins, Tua is going to keep getting better and more comfortable. So that's a team that could possibly then for the NFC, the Lions. I have to pick. I think they're good. They have great offense. The Bears are, going down, like I said. But I like the Lions. They're a couple of their losses. The one to the Bears they should have won. To the Packers they were leading. They're like kind of like the Bengals. Most of their losses they were leading and then they gave up the league. So they're just my 3 teams I think will make a push.
For me, you guys took my AFC teams. I was going to go with the Raiders and the Dolphins as well. I feel like the Raiders, they could get a wild card, and I feel like the Dolphins could possibly maybe win the East if the Bills drop a few games along the way and they continue to win. But they could also maybe sneak into a wild card spot depending on how the Browns do and how the Colts do. Especially because that South division is pretty tight right now between the Titans and Colts, depending on who wins that. Obviously, probably get the other wild card spot. But, going along the way, I like the Raiders. I think they definitely could get into the playoffs. The Dolphins might be a bit of a more long shot, but I think they both could end up sneaking into there. And realistically, I don't have any NFC teams. I think whoever gets second and third in the West are probably going to end up getting wild card spots, and then whoever gets second in the South is probably going to end up getting a wild card spot. If not, whoever ends up getting second in the North will get the wild card spot. Because if you're not one of those teams, then you're basically, you look at the Giants, they're 1-6, Falcons 2-6, Dallas 3-6, Minnesota 2-5, Washington 2-5, Panthers 3-5, Detroit 3-4, and then there's San Francisco who's 4-4. So there's not a whole lot of teams you can pick from to say like, oh, I think like Dan saying the Vikings making the playoffs. It could happen, but I'm not going to be as bold as Dan and say that because it's very, very long shot right now.
Mm.
It
Just
could
a thought.
happen.
Just a
Yeah,
thought.
all right. Food for thought. I'll chew on it. I'll think about it. But I'm not going to be as bold as him. I don't think the Vikings will probably make any late season push and win the game, or win the division or something like that, make a wild card spot. I don't think they will. I think the NFC playoffs probably. I'm not gonna say they're set in stone because the wild card teams could probably shift around a little bit depending on who wins the divisions and who don't. But the teams that are in right now are most likely the teams that are gonna be in come January, come February. Yeah, that's what I got to say on that. Next question. This is an interesting one. Who are you guys' most underrated offensive and defensive player in the NFL right now?
I guess I'll go. So for offense, he's not like super underrated. I'm not finding like the diamond in the rough here, but for me, it's got to be Kenny Galladay, the wide receiver for the Detroit Lions. He struggled a bit this season with injuries, but when he's played, he's looked great. I mean, and last season, just since he's been in the league, just in general, he's really good at catching touchdowns. He led the league in touchdowns last year, I believe. And playing in Detroit, it's easy for someone to go unnoticed because it's Detroit. They're a bad team. And, I guess sometimes game script does go into his success because Detroit is usually behind, so they have to pass the ball more. But I don't think that should take away from the fact that he's a super talented receiver. And I think there's a lot of guys that are in consideration for this spot, but for me, on the offensive side of the ball, it has to be Kenny Galladay. And do you guys want to go with offensive yours first, or
Just
should I
go
just go
for your
defense?
defense, and
Okay,
then we'll go next.
all right. And for me, defensively, I would say Brian Burns, the edge rusher for the Carolina Panthers. He was a rookie last year, performed pretty well, 7.5 sacks. And then this year, he already has 3 and then 3 forced fumbles. It just when he's just a playmaker. That Panthers defense very young, new coaching, Matt Rule, Joe Brady. So I feel like, and the success has been so far, but he is just a playmaker, just through and through, and I think he's gonna have a great career in Carolina. And I think if a guy like Luke Kuechly hadn't retired, that Carolina defense would be really, really scary. But he retired, but Brian Burns still playing extremely well, and I feel like not enough people talk about him.
Okay, the two players for offense, I'll start off. I'll say Drew Lock. I know he has struggles and he's been through a lot this season, but when I believe when the Broncos are at full health, everything's normal. He gets to have a training camp and preseason. I truly think he'll be one of the best quarterbacks, and he has good coaching. Vic Fangio. So Drew Lock would be my offensive one, and then for defense, I mentioned his name earlier, Robert Spillane, the middle linebacker on the Steelers. He is a rookie out of Western Michigan. Now he's a big body. He's built like a Brian Urlacher. He's a big dude who hits you hard, and you're gonna remember when he hits you. He had a pick six today, and he's taking over Devin Bush, who we all know how good Devin Bush is because he has a torn ACL and he's out for the year. So he's being in charge of that Steelers defense, and he's one of their keys to the success because Watt runs the front, Spillane runs the middle, and in the back, Fitzpatrick runs it. So he's been doing great this season. I think he's the most underrated player.
I think for my most underrated, I'm gonna go with Robbie Anderson on the Carolina Panthers. I feel like he was kind of one of the more quiet signings in the offseason going from the Jets to Carolina. And him and Teddy Bridgewater have been forming a very nice duo. He's pretty effective when he gets the ball thrown his way. I can't pull his stats right off the top of my head, but he's been having a pretty good season. A couple touchdowns. Most of the games he puts up very nice numbers. I think he had a little over 50 receiving yards this past Thursday when they played the Falcons. And most of the games, I think towards the beginning of the season, he had a couple 100-yard games with touchdowns. And I don't think enough people talk about him. Granted, we look at all the wide receivers in the league and how much noise all the other guys are making. So it makes sense. But I would say he's probably one of the most underrated wide receivers in the NFL right now, if not offensive players just in general. And for defense, I'm going to go Brandon Graham, defensive end on the Eagles. I think he's third in sacks right now in the NFL, only behind Aaron Donald and Myles Garrett. And it's funny because the last season, he was really overrated, and now this season he's pretty underrated. I think against Dallas, he also had a sack and a forced fumble, if not a couple more sacks as well. But he's been having a pretty good season so far. He's causing a lot of disruption for quarterbacks. He's breaking up a lot of plays, a lot of run plays. And he just, he'll always be in my memory for the strip sack he got in Super Bowl. But he's really performing this season. He's making his case to get into a Pro Bowl, which won't be played this year. But he's having a great year, and it's pretty underrated for the way that the rest of the NFL, their defenses, and the rest of the pass rushers in the NFL, they've been going. He's not really talked about much. Granted, we look at Myles Garrett, we look at Aaron Donald. Those guys are incredible. They're on a different playing field, honestly. But yeah, that would be my underrated offensive, underrated defense. So we've broken down week 8, talked about the Monday Night Football game between the Giants and the Buccaneers, even though there wasn't much to talk about. And then Dan and Ant both gave their predictions, or their performer of the weekend, I should say. Dan went with Dalvin Cook. Anthony went with the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm going to go with my prediction. Comes from this team, Juventus. Cristiano Ronaldo finally returned after about 2.5 weeks being away after testing positive for COVID. Tested negative. Played against Spezia. Didn't start. Came on, I believe it was like the 56th minute or something like that. Scored 3 minutes later and then went ahead and scored another penalty en route to a 4-1 victory for Juventus against Spezia. Good enough to earn my performer of the weekend. It's good to see him back. And, he's 35 years old. Come back from COVID. It's similar to Zlatan. 39 years old, coming back from COVID, scores a goal. 35 years old, comes back from COVID, scores 2 goals. That's pretty good. You're going to get my performer of the weekend for that performance alone. And while we're at it, let's move on into soccer. Dan, we had some pretty good games over the weekend. Why don't you go ahead and break them all down for us?
Yeah, yes, there were definitely some good games over the weekend. Big one that I talked about on last week's or the midweek podcast. Arsenal ended up defeating Manchester United 1-0. Aubameyang scored a penalty in the 69th minute, which is good if you're an Arsenal fan because he hadn't scored since Matchday 1 in the league. So it's good to see their main goal scorer get back on the board, even if it is a pen. It definitely was a deserved penalty. It wasn't any like stupid VAR thing or anything like that. But Arsenal did enough. There wasn't too much offense in this game, if I'm being honest. But Arsenal's a very good win for them. United, I don't know. I don't understand what happens to them when they play in the league compared to when they play in the Champions League, because I think they're 15th right now, like 4 points off the relegation zone. I mean, it's very early season. Manchester United is obviously not going to get relegated, but it's just I don't really understand what happens to them in the league. But definitely a good win for Arsenal, or especially after coming off a loss last week and to Leicester. And then I guess I'll have to talk about it. So my prediction during the midweek podcast was that West Ham were going to beat Liverpool. They did not. They lost 2-1. West Ham went up in the game 1-0 after 10 minutes with a goal from Pablo Fornals, but they eventually, Mohamed Salah scored a penalty, and then Diego Jota came on later and scored in the 85th minute, I think. And West Ham weren't able to do it. After they scored, Liverpool was pressing pretty high, and they weren't really able to create much since then. They played a good game, but Liverpool, they probably deserved the 3 points that they got. So, I'll hold my hands up and say I was wrong there. Another game that I previewed last week, Leicester vs Leeds, that actually is happening on Monday. So I'll explain that result when we get there on the midweek podcast. I guess one more in the Premier League before I move on. Newcastle defeated Everton 2-1 off a Callum Wilson brace. And Everton, they moved to third now. Liverpool are top of the league. It's a very good win for Newcastle, who they're just, I don't know. Some were thinking that they could perhaps go down, but Callum Wilson, great signing for them. I think it was only for 15 mil over the summer, and he's performed well so far, and they're just gonna stay mid-table and be happy, especially since the Saudi ownership did not come through over the summer, if you were keeping with that. So they didn't get Mbappe and Neymar like they were hoping. So in the another game I talked about on the midweek podcast was Borussia Mönchengladbach versus RB Leipzig. Gladbach end up winning 1-0. Very good win for them. They move up to fifth, and it's a good win against a good team. They've performed well, like we talked about in the Champions League, and then a win against Leipzig, who were first, but now they're not. Now Dortmund and Bayern sit atop the Bundesliga table. So those were the games I talked about before, and another interesting result. Barcelona, they draw. I think it was against Alaves, and this was just not a good result for them. They have been struggling in the league. I mean, they dominated everything, possession, shots, but they ended up getting a draw. Not very good for them. I think they're 12th right now. But if you read my article, you know that things could perhaps be on the up because the president, Josep Bartomeu, has resigned. So maybe things could be looking up now, but a terrible result for them. So those are a few of the games of the weekend that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, Dan brings up Barcelona struggling. They haven't won a game in La Liga since the 1st of October. And we're recording this on the 1st of November. So it's been an entire month since they've won a game in La Liga. Besides that, they drew against Sevilla on October 4th. They lost to Getafe on October 17th. They lost to Real Madrid in Clasico on the 24th. And as Dan just mentioned, they drew with Alves today. So not good results at all. They've only got 2 points in their last 4 games in La Liga. They sit 12th in the league right now. And Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid, they're starting to, gain traction and start running away with it a little bit. So Barcelona is going to have to pick up their pace just a little bit if they want to continue to compete in La Liga, especially, as I just said, with Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid doing good, and they're going to continue to do well. And Real Sociedad, they actually sit at the top of La Liga right now with 17 points. Madrid and Real is second, Atletico is third, and as we mentioned, Barcelona sits at 12th right now, only with 8 points. They got 2 wins to start the season. They haven't gotten any since, so they're going to look to bounce back. And as Dan said, read his article and figure out how they could be on the uprise very soon. All right, Dan. So we're going to move into match day 3 of the Champions League. And while we're at it, we'll refer to the Sports King board for the first time this episode. We got 4 pretty nice games coming up on match day 3 of the Champions League. I highlighted these, and it actually turned out that Dan highlighted these games as well. Atalanta is going to play Liverpool. Real Madrid is going to play Inter Milan. PSG is going to play RB Leipzig. And Shakhtar is going to play Mönchengladbach. Dan, why don't you go ahead and break down those games and any more games that you'd like to break down?
Yeah, so those, like you just said, those 4 games, definitely the ones that we have to look at during this week. The big ones, I would say, well, I mean, they're all big ones. I guess I'll start with the one I think is probably of least importance. Atalanta versus Liverpool. So Liverpool are top, and then I think Atalanta second. So presumably we think those teams will get through, but it'll be an interesting game. Atalanta have a high-powered offense, so it's always fun to see them playing against big sides. So that should be a fun one. So I guess we'll see, because Liverpool's been in mixed form, some good results, but also some bad ones. Same thing with Atalanta. So it'll be pretty interesting to see. And then the two big ones looking at Group B with Real Madrid versus Inter, and then Mönchengladbach versus Shakhtar. So it's weird to think, but Shakhtar's top of the group right now on 4. Inter and Gladbach both have 2, and then Real Madrid is on 1. So these are some big games. These are make or break games for every team. I mean, if you're Shakhtar right now, playing for a draw might honestly it could bode very well for you. So just like they did against Inter. So I it's gonna be really, you got to keep an eye on those games. Real versus Inter should be a good game too. European giants with very rich history going at it. They've also had some mixed form. Gladbach has been on pretty good form, so maybe they can, if they get a win against Shakhtar and then Inter and Madrid tied just like that, they're top of the group. So it'll be very interesting to see. So keep an eye on those. And then PSG versus Leipzig, two teams who both lost to United, who are at top of the group right now, playing against each other. And this could be really big too, because presumably we think that they will win their other 2 games against Başakşehir, and they also have to play United again and each other. So they both have 3 points right now, and I think if you're Nagelsmann or uh, I can't remember, or Thomas Tuchel, you have to be playing for a win in this game, because getting the 3 points and leaving the other, so you'd have 6 and the other one would have 3. It could be so big for this group. I don't think you should go play for a tie. I don't know if Neymar, his health, he's been a little shaky as of late, but Leipzig coming off a loss to United in Champions League and then Gladbach over the weekend, they're going to hope to bounce back. So definitely keep an eye on that one. So there's a few really good games that could be make or break for teams in these groups.
Yeah, I'll take your word for it, Dan. Big games. Those games will happen on Tuesday and Wednesday, as they always do in Champions League. Match day 3. Games are going to start to get more important now, especially with match day 4 coming up. I believe towards the end of November, if not early
The
December.
24th, they
24th.
start up again.
So right around the end. Some other games will highlight the bigger names. Lokomotiv Moscow, they're going to play Atletico Madrid on Tuesday. Bayern, they're going to play FC Salzburg. Manchester City are going to play Olympiacos. On Wednesday, Manchester United are going to play Istanbul. I'm not going to try to pronounce the second word in that name. Lazio are going to play Zenit. Barcelona are going to play Dynamo Kiev. Chelsea are going to play Stade Rennes. Borussia Dortmund are going to play Club Brugge. Juventus are going to play Ferencváros. And yeah, that's about it. Champions League, as I said, Tuesday and Wednesday. Match day 3, games are going to start to get more important. Points are going to start to count more. You're going to want your wins. Lower tier teams are probably going to want their draws, maybe get their Europa League spot. But it's going to be fun to watch Champions League going forward. And soccer in general will be fun to watch going forward. It's going to be interesting. Title races are going to start, kicking into second gears. We get to the winter months. So, keep your eye out for all the title races, Champions League races, and guess what? You can find them all right here, anytime. So Dan, anything else on soccer before we move on?
I guess going through that fixture list that you just said, that Chelsea Stade Rennes game could be pretty interesting too. So keep an eye on that.
Well said. All right, so let's move in. We've talked predictions so far. Anthony's prediction was that the Dolphins were going to beat the Rams. It came true. He goes to 1-1 on his predictions. Dan's prediction was that West Ham were going to beat Liverpool. Dan now goes to 0-2 on predictions. Dan's going to look to bounce back this week. My prediction was that Thug Nasty Bryce Mitchell was going to get a twister submission victory over Andre Feely at UFC Fight Night on Halloween night. Half of that came true. Bryce Mitchell did win. He did not win by twister submission. He won by unanimous decision. in a very impressive victory. It impressed me. I gave him all 3 rounds, honestly. I could see how you gave him Feely the second round, but I gave all 3 rounds to Bryce Mitchell. Very impressive fight. He looked so dominant on the ground yet again. He's like the redneck Khabib, pretty much. Very impressive. His wrestling is second to none. Just dominant. He had him in mount and full guard almost the entire time, and just rained down every single thing you could throw at him. And Brandon Feely looked pretty good standing up. I gave him a tough time in the second round, but Thug Nasty hung in there. His camo shorts prevailed. He moves to 14-1, and he looks to move up in the rankings. You get another impressive fight in the future, another ranked guy to continue to move up. And of course, the weekend of UFC was highlighted by Anderson Silva. His final fight was to take place against Uriah Hall, and it did. And it did not end well for the Spider. He lost to Uriah Hall, 4th round TKO, in a fight that, frankly, Uriah Hall kind of dominated. I think all the judges gave round 1 to Anderson, but after round 2, I think 2 out of 3 gave it to Uriah, and then round 3, all of them went to Uriah. So it was kind of sad to see the way Anderson went out. I feel like I would have preferred had he just retired maybe after UFC 200. But I mean, I'm not going to discredit the guy. He loves to fight, and he kept doing it for as long as he could. And now he wants to go on a career. So I will applaud him for that, obviously. And if he goes to fight in Bellator, I might go cry because why? But Uriah Hall, he looks to rise in the middleweight rankings now. And speaking of the middleweight division, in the post-fight press conference, good old Dana White announced that Israel Adesanya, the undisputed king of the middleweights, his next fight is going to be at 205 pounds against Jan Blachowicz for the light heavyweight title. And a move that makes a lot of sense for Adesanya, but it kind of left me scratching my head. I remember, Dan, we were sitting out there in the freezing cold on Halloween night talking about it. And me and you, our initial thought were both, why not Whitaker? And, Adesanya was saying he's not going to give Whitaker a rematch. And then Whitaker went out there and said, I don't want a rematch. I don't want to fight that guy again. So the UFC said, you know what? Go ahead, Adesanya, move up to 205. And guess what? If he moves up to 205, which it looks like he will now, and he fights Jan Blachowicz, and guess what? If he beats Jan Blachowicz, that now opens the door for a potential John Jones fight. So you guys got any opinions on this before I go deeper into it?
I mean, like you said, we discussed, I really thought Whitaker probably deserved another shot, but someone deserving a shot and getting a shot is different, especially Adesanya not wanting to do the fight, and then Whitaker coming out and saying he wanted to do the fight. So sadly, he's not going to get the fight, but here we are. So it should hopefully be a good fight between Adesanya and Blachowicz, but I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yep. So definitely I hope just hearing Adesanya versus John Jones, that just like makes me excited. Like I hope we can see that fight one day. We got like probably a year to go or to possibly have that fight, but Adesanya, he's the best in his class. He's he's so good. I was playing UFC before this, and I happened to go on his class, and I did a random, and I was Adesanya. I won by knockout in the first round, but he's so good with everything. So I hope we get that Adesanya John Jones fight.
Yeah, and here's where I'll go into. I think, like I said, if Adesanya is able to move up and win that fight against Jan Blachowicz and win the title, I think then it's set in stone that we're going to get him versus John Jones. And here's another thing. UFC announced Saturday night that the Ultimate Fighter would be returning for the first time since 2018, I believe. And it's set to take place in March. And here's the thing. Jan Blachowicz is going to fight Israel Adesanya probably in the first quarter of 2021. So, we're looking at January, probably not January, but potentially February and maybe March. So if Adesanya wins that fight, then they might look to do Israel Adesanya and John Jones as the coaches for the Ultimate Fighter, which will make interesting build-up because they'll probably do it for International Fight Week in July. So, and hopefully we can get fans back in arenas at that point for UFC. because, I would hate to see that fight in an empty arena again. But that's a different story for a different day. I got an article coming out Monday afternoon. I go more in depth with this and a couple more things that Dana White said throughout the week, because he dropped some interesting things about Khabib. He talked about the Conor Poirier fight, and I go into more detail about this Jan Blachowicz Adesanya saga going on right now. And as we continue to develop and get a concrete date for that, I'll continue to drop more breakdowns for that fight. And as we get closer, you'll learn more about it. But I think that's UFC all wrapped up, unless anyone has any last minute comments they'd like to say.
Nope.
All right. So as I said, Anderson Silva, thank you for all your hard work and dedication. One of the best to ever do it in the UFC. Next stop is the UFC Hall of Fame, probably next summer. If not, very close after that. All right. So let's move into college football, and let's get my pain and agony out of the way first. Penn State pretty much got mollywopped by Ohio State. It was not fun at all to watch. Dan can tell you I was sitting there at the campfire just like this the whole time. Why don't you guys go first so I can cry over here for a little bit?
Okay, yeah. I'll take over. Sean Clifford, man, just I don't know what he was trying to do. I mean, obviously you can't typically blame a loss on a singular player. The defense didn't do great. I mean, they let up 38 points. But in college football, 38 points sometimes isn't even a lot. So, But Sean Clifford, man, I don't know. The offense was stagnant at points. I remember, Dom, I told you I was like over under 2 first downs for this third quarter, and which is that shouldn't be something you have to say. But I don't know, just a terrible performance by Penn State and Sean Clifford especially. I don't know if he was trying to get the whole campus to just hate him, because I'm pretty sure that's what he did. I have a lot of buddies at Penn State. They definitely do not like Sean Clifford right now over there. But yeah, just a painful game to watch if you support Penn State.
Well, this game wasn't that painful for me.
Anthony, choose your next words very carefully.
Ohio State, Justin Fields looked awesome. 28 for 34, 318 yards and 4 touchdowns. It's his Heisman season. With Lawrence having COVID right now, that kind of gives him Fields an advantage, because he'll have an extra game than Lawrence will. But just they came out firing. Penn State wasn't. The offense wasn't. They couldn't move the ball really. And then the defense, I never thought that a player would be so important to a team like Mekhi Parsons, even though he's not playing this season. But his presence for Penn State just was so important. And with him not playing, it hurts a lot. But just Justin Fields is the reason why they won this game. He was just unbelievable.
Yeah, that's true. It's very true. I feel like from the start of the game, we were kind of, just screwed, honestly. As I said, I had get friends over on Halloween night, and I had TV outside so we could watch the game. And first play of the game was like a 60-yard, dash and sprint. Got him in the red zone, got him close to the goal line, and I was just like, well, it's fun while it lasted. And defense was just terrible. We couldn't really buy a stop, honestly, when we needed one. Offense didn't look good. The only person on offense who looked good was Jahan Dotson, who had that spectacular one-handed catch for a touchdown. That was about it. That was the only offense that Penn State provided against Ohio State. Now they started the season 0-2, which is, literally the worst thing that could have happened. If you beat Indiana, you're 1-1. You're probably still in the rankings, but now they're unranked. Obviously going 0-2. I mean, I look at the rest of the schedule, and they probably should win the rest of the games. Maybe Michigan causes some problems, but that's about it. The rest of their schedule is pretty easy. They should win out. But obviously, they won't be playing in a Big Ten title game now. They most certainly will not be playing in a college football playoff. And it's probably a reach for a New Year's Six Bowl for them at this point, honestly. Especially if Indiana starts, cranking out good wins and they turn out to be actually a decent team. It's just gonna make it look weirder for Penn State, honestly. But I said it on the last podcast. Sean Clifford is not the answer for Penn State. I wouldn't be mad if we started Will Levis for the rest of the season, the backup quarterback right now. He's not the guy. Dan, we were making jokes about it. Like, he was like 14 for 23 or something like that.
Yeah.
And he's probably like, oh yeah, I had a really good game. He didn't have a good game. The stats may say like, oh yeah, he had a pretty decent game. He did not have a good game. If you watch the
read
game,
option decisions are just James Franklin's offense.
Yeah, that's the problem with it. It's read option plays that take too long to develop. Like you can't a read option play is it's a bang bang play. Like you got to read it, you got to either hand it off or you got to go on your own. And Sean Clifford takes way too long to do that. Like he takes 10 steps with the ball. He's pretty much running with the running back, and then he'll decide if he wants to hand it off or not. You can't be doing that. Like 9 out of 10 times when they run a read option against Ohio State's already in the backfield with one of their guys' arms around the running back or the running back or the quarterback. So you just can't have that. A poor showing by Penn State all in all. They really didn't even show up to the game. They were outclassed in every single way. They were gifted 3 points at the end of the first half because Justin Fields kind of made a mental error, and it was 4th down. There was like 2 seconds left on the clock, and they were like, oh, just knee it. And he took a knee with 1 second left. So they got a field goal out of that. So they made the game closer. But every single time Penn State seemed they were going to make a game out of it, they just couldn't get a stop on defense. They couldn't buy a stop. I heard from a lot of Ohio State guys like, oh, I've never thought a 13-point victory over Penn State would feel so bad. And it's it was a weird game, definitely, because Penn State could have made it way more competitive, but they didn't because their defense was just
fans
atrocious.
didn't help.
Yeah, definitely. When that whiteout atmosphere is there, it's a different ball game. Maybe they would have only lost by 3 points or 5 points, but they were probably losing that game regardless. Just a good performance by Ohio State. I can't deny it. It was a good game by them. Justin Fields had a masterclass of a game, 4 touchdowns, 318 yards. If it's not Trevor Lawrence, he's winning the Heisman. So,
Well,
what's that, Anthony?
Do you want to say something?
well,
Yeah.
Are we done talking about this game? Then I'll get right into the next one.
Well, I said if it's not for Trevor Lawrence, then Justin Fields is going to win the Heisman. And you said, what do you got on that?
Now, as of right now, Mac Jones is second. Alabama quarterback. He's second not before like the preseason. That was Lawrence and Fields co-favorites for it, but right now he's second favorite for it. He just threw this weekend 4 touchdowns, 417 yards. He has 17 on the year, 16 throwing, 1 rushing, and he's around 2,300 yards. He's just a little behind Lawrence, and with Lawrence not playing the last game, we don't know how much longer he's going to be out. Some people like Nick Saban has COVID for 2 days, and then like Ronaldo had it for 2 weeks or a little bit longer. So his stock, even though Trevor Lawrence is the best player for college football, and that's a fact. But just because he's the best player in college football and the most talented doesn't mean he should get the trophy. He should be whoever who has the best season. That's how I see with the Heisman. It's not just because like he has the best talent. This dude had a better season than him. So this guy with the better season should win the Heisman. So just depending on when Lawrence comes back, how Fields and Mac Jones do, they could possibly take his Heisman away.
I think Lawrence can miss 3 more games and still win the Heisman. I mean,
Yeah.
especially if he wins a national championship too.
You're doing that on because he's so much better and talented, which is true.
He could make it up in the stats too.
Yeah,
like, that's
but
something not
if
out
he
of the
makes
realm
it
of possibility.
Yeah, no, if he makes it up in the stats, if he makes
and
it up in the stats, that's perfectly fine. And then he has the stats. But if he
has 4 less touchdowns than Mac Jones and plays,
I just think to
games,
Anthony's point,
come
I
on.
think Mac Jones is way behind in the Heisman race. If I'm being honest, I think you need to look at I don't.
Stats are not a very
Uh,
good indicator.
Zach Wilson
sometimes,
from
like-
BYU. I think he's probably higher up in the Heisman race than Mac Jones is right now. Honestly, Kyle Trask from Florida. He might be higher up in the Heisman race than Mac Jones is right now. Anthony, you were going off on Rocky Lombardi before the podcast started. Maybe he has an incredible season in the Big Ten. He wins a Heisman or something like that.
Players in college
I-
football put up insane stats, so I can't.
It's not Mac Jones for me.
Like-
I don't even know if he's top 5 right now. Realistically, he could
It's
be, but
Lawrence
number
or
two.
Fields, and that's
I
it.
He's
don't
number
know.
2.
I don't
When I
know.
do my research for my articles, he's number 2
Listen,
right now.
your research and my knowledge are two completely different things. So I'm not going to call you out on it. I know what your opinions are, and I'll never bash you for what you think. But Mac Jones is not top 3. He's not top 5 for Heisman right now to me. I think realistically, it's Trevor Lawrence right now, and then you need to look at Justin Fields, and then, like I said, Kyle Trask, and the guy from BYU, whose name I'll never remember, Zach Wilson. You look at those guys, and I think those are probably your front runners for the Heisman right now. Maybe not so much Kyle Trask. I think the other 3 definitely. But
Hey man, Slovis plays this weekend with the Pac-12, so you got to keep an eye out.
there you go. I don't think it's
Mhm.
Mac Jones, though. Like I'm not going to say he's a bad quarterback, but he's not a Heisman winning quarterback. I don't know.
He's just a quarterback at one of the best schools in the nation. That's what
Correct.
it is.
That's
I
it.
I
And
feel like-
Baker won a Heisman. That's exactly what he did. Baker wasn't the
Baker
best
played
quarterback.
insane.
No,
Baker
he
did
wasn't
play
the best
insane.
quarterback. He played good. He's doing the same numbers that Mac Jones is doing right now. But the
All
way
right, but Baker Mayfield wasn't also going up against Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields.
Baker's going up against good people. Like off the top of my head, I can't. So Baker was drafted 2018. So he was going against Tua, Hurts.
I don't think Tua was playing.
I don't think Tua
It was probably
started at that
Hurts.
point.
That was Hurts.
I think
then,
that
or-
might have been the year he started he came in the second half of the national championship game.
So Hurts, and then if you.
I mean, if you look at the quarterbacks that got drafted that year, I mean, I'm a
from-
USC guy, but like Darnold wasn't winning it. Rosen wasn't winning it.
Oh,
Josh Allen
Saquon.
wasn't winning it.
They don't really
T-
typically give it to a running back, though. I mean, it's like the MVP in the
McCaffrey should have
NFL.
won. But
Yeah, if they didn't give it to McCaffrey, they weren't giving it to Saquon. Like Saquon did start trailing off towards the end of that year as well, too. But yeah, it's like the NFL with the MVP. They don't give it to running backs or wide receivers or something like that. It's the best quarterback award pretty much, and I feel like everyone knows that at this point.
McCaffrey should have a Heisman and an MVP. but,
Yeah,
you know,
it doesn't work that way. So,
I
all right,
hope
that's
they
it.
watch and hear this. So
Okay, well, they're not. That's enough Heisman talk for now. But we'll stick to the theme of college football. There was a lot of interesting games this week. The most interesting being Clemson, Boston College, honestly. I think we all joked on the last podcast. Trevor Lawrence got COVID. How much this is going to affect Clemson? Well, instead of them winning by 60, they only win by 40. That wasn't the case. They only won by 6. Very close game. Boston College, they were dogging them at halftime. It was 28-13. And then they didn't score an entire point for the rest of the second half. Clemson storms back. They win the game 34-28. I'm going to absolutely butcher this last name. I might not even try to pronounce it.
just
Good
say
old DJ on Clemson, true freshman, 342 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had an okay game. I think he had a turnover or 2, maybe.
there was some fumble, like handoff issues.
Yeah, Travis Etienne, he did Travis Etienne things. 84 yards and a touchdown. He also had 140 yards and a touchdown receiving. That's insane. He might win the Heisman, honestly. Etienne, he's been having a crazy season.
He's in the top 5.
But a weird game from Clemson. I feel like this could have been a trap game. They looked at Notre Dame next week, and they didn't really think about Boston College, especially with Trevor Lawrence. With them losing Trevor Lawrence, they started really heavily looking at Notre Dame. But they were able to escape Boston College. I believe they remain number 1 in the rankings for now. Alabama's still at 2. It sets up an incredible matchup between Notre Dame and them next week. Again, they'll be without Trevor Lawrence. We're going to talk about that game more on midweek podcast, so be sure to tune in for that. But let's look at Clemson real quick. A big scare against Boston College. They're easily to narrowly escape. What do you guys got on this game?
Yeah, definitely.
You're good. You're good.
Okay. So yeah, I was able to watch most of this game, and it was definitely a big scare for Clemson. Travis Etienne really took the game into his own hands and kind of forced them back into the game. And the defense stepped up in the second half. And, Boston College, you got to give them credit. They competed, they played well. I mean, even though they choked at the end, they put up a good game against the best team in college football. They had a chance on the last drive to maybe get it in, but they got a safety, and that kind of took away any hopes that they had. But a bit of a scare for Clemson. They did get the win, which is uber important in college football. Like one loss, and it's like, oh, you're not in the playoff. But it was definitely a good comeback for Clemson. Maybe it was a good test for them playing from behind, something that they probably wouldn't have experienced if Lawrence was in. But just the team as a whole, maybe a bit of a wake up call.
This was just a second half takeover by Clemson. Whatever Coach Dabo Sweeney said at halftime really got to the players, especially the defense. DJU, I'm not going to pronounce your last name, sorry. No, he was a little shaky. It was his first start, so the nerves could get to him. He does go in at the end of the game, but that's when they're butchering a team by like 30-40. So like now maybe after his first game, and Boston College, they're a good team they were sixth in the ACC, and the ACC is very talented this year. Usually it was always Clemson destroying teams. It still is, but now Notre Dame got added to it. Miami, UNC, Virginia Tech, and Virginia and Boston College are getting better. So it's definitely not a win where you go in knowing that you're going to win this game. So just, it was a good first start for DJU. And we have to be on standby for news for Trevor Lawrence and when his comeback will be.
Yeah, I imagine it'll probably be the week after the Notre Dame game, whoever that is against. But he will be missing that Notre Dame game, and as I said, we'll be getting into that game in the midweek podcast, so be sure to tune in for that, and we'll go in depth in that game, break that game down. But yeah, Clemson, I don't think this does anything for me. I don't look at them any differently now. I think they're still probably the best team in college football. I think if Trevor Lawrence was playing in this game, they probably would have won by a lot more. Yeah, you guys said everything there's to say about it. Etienne had another great game. So look for him to dominate against Notre Dame. But yeah, we'll move on. Briefly touch upon number 2, Alabama. They played Mississippi State, steamrolled them 41-0. Anthony's favorite, Mac Jones, 24-31, 291 yards, 4 touchdowns, all to Devonta Smith, who had 11 receptions for 203 yards and 4 touchdowns. And then Najee Harris had 21 carries for 119 yards on the ground. Do you guys have anything on this game?
So
Roll Tide.
not gonna say that, but just the dominant win for Alabama.
I'm pretty sure Devontae Smith had 3 touchdowns.
4 touchdowns.
4? All right. So now, that was the first game without Jalen Waddle. So, he's stepping up big time.
Who could be a future problem in the future?
No, but just it was a good game by Alabama. They're rolling right now.
Tied and most definitely rolling. We talked about number 3, Ohio State already. Number 4, Notre Dame. They played Georgia Tech. They steamrolled them 31-13. Ian Book, a somewhat decent game, almost 200 yards and a touchdown. Kyron Williams on the ground, 15 carries, 76 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Javon McKinley through the air, 5 receptions, 93 yards, and route to a nice win for Notre Dame going into their big clash against Clemson. Anything on this game, guys?
Not really. Just looking for next week.
Yeah.
Yep. Number 5, Georgia. I don't know what happened. They played the worst game of their season so far. They beat Kentucky 14-3. Stenson Bennett, 9 of 13 for 131 yards and 2 interceptions. Zamir White did have a good game on the ground, 26 carries for 136 yards and 1 touchdown. Anything on this monstrosity of a game, guys?
It was just
sloppy.
Yeah. A little sloppy, and then I'll say, a lot of, there's a lot of chatter in like Bulldog Nation if Stetson Bennett is our quarterback. he has some moments where he shines, but then like games like this, like 14-3 win is not okay, especially not a touchdown. Zamir White is one of the best running backs, and then you have George Pickens, who's one of the best receivers, and the Georgia defense is very talented. And they did get top quarterback JT Daniels from USC to transfer in, and now he's eligible to play. So honestly, in my opinion, I think they should give him a shot. I know Stetson has experience, or not the Stetson's college. Bennett has a experience, but I think they got to give Daniels a shot just to show what he can do. JT Daniels is a top prospect for quarterback, and they're just letting him sit, and he's not practicing to get better. So I think they have to change their quarterback, give it a try, test it out. You have nothing to lose.
They got a lot to lose, honestly. If they lose another game, they're probably out of the SEC title picture, which actually puts them out of contention for college football playoff as well, probably. So I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Terrible game, but probably stuff you can fix upon. They could give JT Daniels a start, but I think right now just keep Stetson Bennett in. Fix him, fix his game. I mean, continue going with this ground game. It seems to be doing pretty good. So build upon that. Number 6, Oklahoma State. They fall to unranked Texas. Texas wins the game 41-34 in overtime. Spencer Sanders, quarterback of Oklahoma State, had a pretty good game, 400 yards, 4 touchdowns. Chuba Hubbard, one of the top running backs in college right now, 25 carries, 72 yards. And Tylan Wallace, Oklahoma State wide receiver, he had 187 yards, 2 touchdowns. A pretty impressive win for a Texas team that was unranked going into this. It had been a rough season for them so far, but Anthony called this win on the last podcast, so I let him take over.
Dan, you have anything quick to say, or?
Just kind of good game by Sam Ellinger, and you said Hubbard only had 72 rushing yards.
Only 72, yeah.
Pretty pedestrian by him, I gotta say. And in college football in general, you're looking at like running backs with 150 and 2 touchdowns. So for a guy with, his talent, that's pretty pedestrian by him.
Yeah, most definitely. Sanders, the quarterback, did amazing. But Hubbard just 72 yards, especially in 25 carries. You said right, Tom, or 26?
25, yep.
Just for them to keep winning, he has to do better than that. He has great talent. And Texas, Texas is a good team. They're very underrated. Ellinger is experienced quarterback now. He's used to the big games, and they have good young talent coming in. And I was watching a podcast earlier this weekend. It made me think. Before I watched this game, and it was Matthew McConaughey, Mr. Texas. He's always there, and he just wrote a book, a memoir, and it just came out called Green Lights, and he's talking about how Texas is playing in the third person this season. And that is because they have so much social media on you, and Texas, they're a school where you go, you're going to be on national TV, you're going to be looking to win a championship, and you're going to have a lot of pressure on you. And all the players are just too worried about that. And they just have to have fun, let loose. Don't worry about the pressure. They have a lot of young talent that Matthew McConaughey mentioned, and this week against Oklahoma State, they were relaxed. They weren't all uptight, even though it went to overtime. And, when it's overtime and you score, you win. It's you're supposed to be nervous, but Ellinger was nice and loose. So was the offense, and the defense did very good this weekend. I know they did let up 4 touchdowns for Sanders, but they looked better. So it was a good sign by Texas, and I think Texas is going to sneak back into the rankings and upset some teams in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not entirely sure what the Big 12 picture looks right now, but I imagine they'd have to win out to make a Big 12 title game and hopefully try and get a New Year's Six bowl, because they don't look like they'll be getting in the college football playoff. But I imagine they'll be happy with a New Year's Six bowl victory. We'll move on. Cincinnati, number 7 ranked Cincinnati. They put the beat down on Memphis. They beat them 49-10. Cincinnati running back Jerome Ford, 9 carries, 116 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had a good game en route to the big win. Anything on this game, guys?
Just weird how I hear number 7 ranked Cincinnati in football.
Well, let
Just
me ask you this: do you guys think they could be like the UCF this year? You think they could be that team that like they're going to go undefeated, but then no one's going to be like, no, they shouldn't be in the college football playoff because we look at all these other teams that are going to be there.
Perhaps. I mean, I don't know if they have any like big opponents, you know what I mean, in the
they're in the
division they're in.
AAC, I think,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the
Yeah.
same division as Temple. So
Temple.
I don't know if there are any games that are like, oh, they're undefeated and they have this win. So maybe they should make it. So I think, but with unless their season goes catastrophically wrong, like your Clemson, your Alabama, your Ohio State, Georgia, like teams like that, even if they have one loss, it's going to be hard to justify having Cincinnati go in over them.
Yeah, like that whole UCF thing when they went undefeated, they were not the best team. I wanted them to let them play one of the 4 top teams picked just so they can get destroyed. And I don't like how I think it was the governor said we're taking today off because they're the national champions. Like I think that's stupid. You're obviously not. Um, but Cincinnati. I know in college basketball, Houston just got added to the AAC. I don't know if they did that for football too, or it might imply for next season. But just Temple, Memphis, they're not like powerhouse teams. Yes, you'll have some non-conference games, but just for right now, I think because how the Big Ten started late and all the conferences aren't starting at the same time, that has something to do with the rankings. So if they go undefeated, they go undefeated, and good for them. You know, but I don't think they should be thought of for a playoff spot.
I think this is the big reason as to why they should expand the playoffs to 8 teams, so we can see potential teams like Cincinnati. And a couple years ago, if we could have gotten UCF into the playoff, I think an 18 playoff is ideal. It just gives all the Power Five conference winners, they can get in automatically, and then you can get 3 other teams in there as well. So I think, but that's a conversation we'll have for a different day. I don't think right now I wouldn't put Cincinnati into the college football playoff. I don't think anyone would at this point besides Cincinnati fans, maybe. But something might go wrong along the line in their season. They'll lose a game, which will probably knock them way down the rankings, honestly. But who knows? They could go undefeated. Maybe the die falls their way and some teams go down. They sneak in as number 4 in the playoff or something like that. We'll continue to break down. Number 8, Texas A&M. They scraped out a win against Arkansas, 42-31. Kellen Mond, 21-26 for 260 yards, 3 touchdowns. Arkansas running back Rakeem Boyd, he had 18 carries for 100 yards and a touchdown. And Arkansas wide receiver Treylon Burks had 7 receptions for 117 yards and 2 touchdowns. So Arkansas, they put up somewhat of a fight. They scored 14 in the third quarter or in the fourth quarter to make the game closer. But Texas A&M, they improved to 4-1, as they're probably going to need to win out from here on out too. Any hopes to get into an SEC title game of a potential playoff spot?
Good win from
Yeah.
A&M. I mean, like you said, Arkansas came back a little bit, but some fourth quarter touchdowns. I think A&M definitely deserves the game.
Yeah, and ever since they beat Florida, they've been looking like a better team. Usually, Texas A&M always loses to like just always
Everybody.
loses, yeah, to everyone, and
Yep.
it's like they're always a team that gets upset. But now, ever since upsetting Florida, they've been looking very good. So that's a good sign for Aggie fans.
There you go, Aggies fans. Anthony said it. Number 10, Florida. They returned to action for the first time in a while this weekend. They played Missouri. They trampled them 41-17. Kyle Trask had a pretty big game, 21-36, 345 yards and 4 touchdowns. Also led the team in rushing with only 47 rushing yards. But Kyle Pitts had the most receiving yards with 81 on 5 receptions. A good sign for Florida. No rust on them as they pounce on Missouri. Anything you guys take away from this game?
Good game by
Not
Kyle
really.
Trask. He's just making himself look even better. As a top quarterback in college football, he's a big quarterback too. he reminds me like Big Ben, like how Big Ben's playing this season. Just he's big, he's got all these weapons, and he utilizes each one, and he doesn't just have a favorite. Like everyone has their favorite, but he doesn't have. This is the one guy I'm always going to. He's spreading it out, making it hard for defenses to pick their man out.
All right. Anthony, if number 7 Cincinnati put a sour taste into your mouth, wait till you hear that number 11 BYU beat up Western Kentucky 41-10. Zach Wilson, another very good game for him, 224 yards, 3 touchdowns. BYU's running back Tyler Algier, 16 carries, 95 yards, 1 touchdown. And Dax Milne, weird names on BYU, 5 receptions, 67 yards, and a touchdown. BYU moves to 7-0. I would imagine they're similar to Cincinnati, as in they probably will make the playoff as of right now. They need some teams to lose. But anything you guys got on this game?
Not really. Let's see BYU and Cincinnati in a bowl game.
Yeah, they can play third place game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, BYU only has 3 games left too.
There you go. BYU looking to finish strong. Yeah, I imagine they probably started like late August.
Yep, they're what's it called? They're the FBS Independent Conference. So they started like with the Air Force and like UConn just moved there, and UMass, and then the Army and Liberty. So they have a shorter season. They play Boise State next week, which is they're ranked 21, which is going to be a good game. Hopefully, I don't know where it is, but I always like Boise State's field. I thought it was cool with that orange
Blue
and
turf.
blue turf. Yeah.
Best field in all college football. All right, Dan, me and you looked at the result of this game. We kind of just laughed at it. Michigan State beats Michigan 27-24 after losing to Rutgers week 1. I don't know what to make of this game. Michigan State are one of the weirdest teams out there, I think. Michigan, they don't help their case at all. I mean, you just lost to the team that lost to Rutgers. So it was a weird game. Rocky Lombardi, as I mentioned earlier, he had a pretty good game, 323 yards, 3 touchdowns. He bounced back very nicely after a rough game against Rutgers. Ricky White, wide receiver for Michigan State, he had 8 receptions for 196 yards and a touchdown. I don't know what I want to say about this game. Do you guys have anything to say about it?
I remember. Oh, no, you go.
You're good.
Okay. I mean, I don't have much to say on it, but I just remember saying on the midweek podcast it'd be pretty funny if Michigan lost to Michigan State, and they did. And I don't know, at least for me, it's pretty funny. Yeah, I mean, Michigan State just got ahead and they were able to hold on. Just a weird game. Just these two, whenever they play, it's always something.
Yeah, just Rocky Lombardi, coming back for his junior season. He took the pressure of this game and just made it feel like there was none there. He did awesome. Like you said, 3 touchdowns, 323, and Ricky White, 8 receptions, 196 yards, and 1 touchdown. Like that's crazy. The quarterback Milton for Michigan, he did have 300 yards, but he didn't have any passing touchdowns. Neither did he was the leading rusher also. He didn't have any rushing touchdowns. So just if your quarterback doesn't score and neither is your running back, like how else you got to score? So just Michigan is one of those weird teams, and it's a rival game. I think Michigan and Michigan State is like right across the bridge from each other to Ann Arbor. So, Spartan fans, I'm sure they're partying and making fun of Wolverine fans right now.
You guys think the ghost of Shea Patterson still haunts Michigan?
Absolutely.
I agree. North Carolina and Virginia got to do an absolute shootout this weekend. Number 15, North Carolina, they lose to unranked Virginia, 44-41. North Carolina quarterback Sam Howell throws 443 yards, 4 touchdowns in the loss. North Carolina wide receiver De'Ami Brown, he had 11 catches for 240 yards and 3 touchdowns. But again, in a loss. So what more can you do? A good game by Virginia. I don't know what else to say. I mean, beating number 15 North Carolina in a shootout game with I know North Carolina's got a pretty good offense, so Good win.
Yeah, Virginia just after the third quarter, it was 41-27, and then in the fourth they just scored that field goal, and then UNC. I love when I see the Tar Heels lose, just because I don't like the Tar Heels, but um, Howell did good. They remind me of the game they played against Florida State. They had a better start, but then they fell so deep behind to where you're firing away, trying to just catch up, and you can't do that. You can't come back from down 15 with a quarter left. And just the defense did better in the fourth quarter, but in the beginning of the game, it was very ugly. And good job, Cavaliers.
Yep, I don't have much to say. You kind of covered all. Just very good win for Virginia, I gotta say.
Perfectly said. Another unranked team beats a ranked team. West Virginia, they knock off number 16 Kansas State 37-10. Absolutely murdered them. West Virginia quarterback Jarrett Doge, 301 yards, 2 touchdowns. West Virginia running back Letty Brown, 102 yards on the ground and 1 touchdown. And Bryce Ford Wheaton on West Virginia, he had 104 yards on 3 receptions. So all out domination for West Virginia in this Big 12 clash. They'll probably bounce into the rankings. They sit at 4-2 right now, as well as Kansas State goes to 4-2 after the loss. So West Virginia could be making a late season push for potential. Maybe I don't know. I don't know what the Big 12 picture looks like right now, but a potential Big 12 title game, or a good bowl game for them to get.
Yeah, I was surprised when I found out the score of this game. I like Kansas State a lot. They always upset teams, and when I was at work, and I was working with someone. I said, I guarantee Kansas State comes back and beats Oklahoma, and they were down like 21, I think it was, and they did. And I love their running back Deuce Vaughn. He's a freshman. He's only like 5'5", but he reminds me of not as good, of course, but a Saquon Barkley. So, he's like Saquon Barkley. That's what he really reminds me of. And the one announcer during the Oklahoma and Kansas State game, they even said the same thing with that 5'5". Saquon's 6 foot, but he's 5'5". He's a small back. He can catch and then out of the backfield, and he can run. He can truck people over, and he's very he has the jukes like Saquon. Kansas State is a run reliant team. Howard, their quarterback's not one of the best, so Vaughn only had 22 yards and 9 carries, and they have to do better for that on that part. West Virginia is a good team, and they usually always have a good big man up front. But just Vaughn just had an off week, and they got to bounce back. They will go down in the rankings. I don't think they'll fall out, but they will drop a little.
Yeah, I think they might drop out. They might get like 24 or something like that. I think West Virginia should probably pop in. If not, they'll be really close to popping in. And that'll make for, some interesting stuff in the Big 12. We'll move on. There's some other games. We'll briefly touch upon them. Number 17, Indiana. They continue their winning ways against Rutgers. Michael Penix Jr. continues to look impressive. He looked good against Penn State. He continued to look good against Rutgers. 238 yards, 3 touchdowns. An overall good game for Indiana. Another good win for them, especially, Rutgers look good coming off a Michigan State win. So, we'll continue to look at Indiana as they develop throughout the season, see if they can continue their winning ways and see if they might pose a threat in the Big Ten. I don't imagine they'll contend with Ohio State, but you never know. We'll see what happens. Anything you guys got on that game?
Just impressed by the Hoosiers. They weren't projected to do that good this year, and now with that big win against Penn State, and then now big win against Rutgers, so 2-0 in the conference. We just got to pay attention. We can't take them lightly.
Yeah, definitely a good win. Rutgers, there's some positivity coming off a good win against Michigan State, but kind of went back down to earth with this, even though it was a good team. So I guess we'll have to see what the rest of the season holds for Rutgers.
Yep. Another weird team ranked undefeated. Number 20, Coastal Carolina. They moved to 6-0 after absolutely destroying
Smoked
Georgia
them.
State 51-0. Grayson McCall, quarterback of Coastal Carolina, 254 yards, 4 touchdowns. En route, the whole team had a good game. CJ Marable, running back, 71 rushing yards and a touchdown. And then Javon Healy, 5 receptions, 81 yards, 2 touchdowns. Coastal Carolina, they look impressive. They moved to 4-0 in the Sun Belt. They look to be well on their way to winning that. Any takes on that game, guys?
I think that the coach probably took the over because I think the over was like 48 over under on the game, and the other
Smart
team
man.
didn't score a single point, so he just kept on going out there.
Never take the under in a college game, folks. Next game, number 22 SMU. They beat Navy. Navy kind of made it, closer than it seemed. They got 20 points in the fourth quarter. They won the game 51-37. Shane Buechele, SMU quarterback, 23-28, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. And Ulysses Bentley, the fourth on SMU, their running back, 25 carries, 149 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he's got one hell of a name. That's an awesome name, Ulysses Bentley, the fourth. That guy's cool. I hope
That's quite a great name.
I hope maybe the Eagles can draft him one day. And Jamel Carruthers, 2 receptions, 91 yards, and a touchdown. SMU look very impressive. 6-1. They moved to 3-1 within their conference, and they could win that conference as well. Any takes on that game, guys?
It's
Go
a good
Navy
win.
still. Go Navy. I'm sorry, SMU. I love the Navy. Go Navy.
Go Navy.
But Ulysses Bennett the fourth. That's a pretty cool name. I agree
Awesome
there.
name. I might have to get that guy's jersey. That's a pretty awesome name. Number 23, Iowa State. They rain on Kansas Parade once again. I don't think Kansas will ever get a win this season. They go to 0-6, 52-22. Brock Purdy, quarterback for Iowa State, 239 yards and 2 touchdowns. Bryce Hall, 21 carries, 185 yards, 2 touchdowns. And Xavier Hutchinson, 5 receptions, 87 yards, and a touchdown. Anything on that game and Kansas's pain, guys?
Well,
Just
Jayhawk fans
pain.
like Dan, just wait till the basketball season. Well, don't we? I don't think they're going to do that good this year. But and then for
Hope
Iowa
they got
State, they're Hall's doing good. They're a team that's throughout the past couple of years, they're always at the end of the rankings. Now they're getting better. They're younger players that were winning when they're freshmen, sophomores are now experienced. So they have a lot of experience at that team. So that could be a team that upsets like a ranked or higher opponent team.
Okay. Oklahoma back in the rankings at 24. They destroyed Texas Tech 62-28. Spencer Rattler 21-30, 288 yards and 2 touchdowns. Ramondre, am I saying that right? Ramondre Stevens, 13 carries, 87 yards, 3 touchdowns, and Theo Weiss, 5 receptions, 105 yards. Any takes on this game, guys, from Oklahoma?
Well, Oklahoma, ever since they lost to Kansas State, they've been forgotten. Just the thing you have to remember is Spencer Rattler's one of the top quarterbacks in the country. He's very forgotten because we have the great quarterbacks Lawrence, Fields, Trask,
Mac
Mac Jones. Yeah. So just Spencer Rattler is up there. He is a sophomore. He only played like 1 game last season, or like chunkage time at the end when they'll be down by a lot or up by a lot. I'm pretty sure his first time playing was when Oklahoma was getting blown out against Clemson, I think, in the first semifinal game, or LSU. I forget what team it was, but he's a great quarterback. And the next couple years, you're going to hear us talking about him, how we talk about Fields and Lawrence, of him going to win the Heisman, him going to lead Oklahoma back to the college championship.
Well said. And the last game we'll talk about, number 25, Boise State. They played Air Force. They beat them up pretty good, 49-30. Boise State quarterback Jack Serra, 17-20, 280 yards, 3 touchdowns. Air Force running back Brandon Lewis did have 10 carries, 112 yards, and a touchdown. Boise State wide receiver C.T. Thomas, 2 receptions, 101 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Anything on that game, guys?
Just looking forward to that game on the weekend against BYU.
Gonna be fun.
Should
And
be a good one.
we're gonna talk all about it on the weekend or the midweek installment of the podcast. So be sure to check that out. It'll be a lot of fun. I think that's gonna wrap up college football, and I think that's also gonna wrap up the episode, guys. We've touched upon it all. We touched upon NFL Week 8. We looked at the Monday night game between the Buccaneers and the Giants. Talked about soccer, the weekend games. We looked at the Champions League fixtures on Tuesday and Wednesday. Briefly touched upon the UFC, Anderson Silva's last fight, and Bryce Mitchell's impressive performance. And then we talked all about college football, Ohio State, Penn State, Clemson, Boston College, Notre Dame, Alabama. Talked about all of them. So before we sign off, let's take a look at the Sports King board for one last time. All your NFL scores are right here. Monday Night Football, as mentioned, Giants play the Buccaneers. Champions League games highlighted: Atalanta versus Liverpool, Real Madrid versus Inter, PSG versus RB Leipzig, and Shakhtar versus Mönchengladbach. As always, follow us on our socials at Twitter, sports__kingdom, at Instagram, at sportsking.dom. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. You're watching this video on it. There are more than 50% of you that aren't subscribed and you're watching this. So hit the subscribe button. How many times do I have to say it, people? Hit it. Click the bell. Get the notifications. Always know when the good content is coming out. And this week we got a quote from Brandon. What up, Pimp? So thanks, Brandon, for that. Real quick before we sign off, preview what's to come on the website this week. On Monday, November 2nd, I've got an article describing Dana White's busy weekend and all the cool things he announced and talked about throughout the week. Dan's going to have an NFL midseason award article come out on Tuesday, so make sure you check that out. Anthony's going to have an article come out on Wednesday and Thursday, I believe. My NHL power rankings, teams 20 through 16, they will continue on Friday. Make sure you go check out teams 31 to 26 and teams 25 to 21 as well. And I think Dan's also going to have something coming out on Saturday. And of course, on Thursday, the midweek installment of the podcast will come out. So be sure to check that out, episode 8. We're going to record it Wednesday night. So you know the drill. Send in your questions if you got any. You know where to find us. You know how to contact us. Guys, any final messages before we sign off?
Thank you for the support.
Yeah. Thank you for the support and, interact with us. Send us questions, start topics and conversations, and we want to see how you the fans think and take your views and your opinions and our opinions. See, well, maybe you teach us something that we don't know, and we're hoping to teach you something that you don't know. If you want us to try to type an article on something, just DM us, tweet at us, comment on below on the YouTube. Just let us know. We're all for you.
By the fans,
for the fans. Perfect. All right. I think it's going to do it for us. I've been your host, Dominic, of course, joined by always by the Price brothers up top, Daniel and Anthony. And thank you for watching episode 7. We'll be back very soon for episode 8. We hope you enjoyed. And of course, we hope you had a happy and safe Halloween. Yeah, guys, we'll catch you in the next one. So everyone take care, and we'll see you then. Take it easy, guys. Adios.
Peace.